Welcome to this volume of Topical Sales Meetings with Joe. In these short sales meetings, Joe's going to talk with you about how to improve your skills, habits, and attitude so you can sell more cars, make more money, and have more fun right now. Joe Verdi has been in the car business since 1973. As the leader in sales and management training, Joe is the people's choice. Why? Because he gets the results dealers, managers, and salespeople are looking for. With unprecedented attendance, Joe spoke at the 91, 92, 93, 94, 96, and the 1997 annual NADA conventions. He is the most sought-after trainer at dealer groups, state and regional associations, and other industry events around the world. Joe's mission is to give each of you the competitive edge by providing the absolute best sales and management training for today's market. Before we get started with this segment, let's review how you can get the most out of your sales meeting with Joe. First, if you're serious about selling more cars, take good notes. If everyone doesn't have a pencil and paper, pause the tape now and get them. Second, let everyone else at the dealership know you're serious about your training class. Ask your receptionist to take messages and hang a Do Not Disturb sign on the door if you have to. Joe's going to cover a lot of information and he's going to cover it quickly, so hold your questions and comments until the end of this segment or until your manager stops the tape. And now, here's Joe.
Don't you hate it when you get down to the nitty-gritty of working a deal and the customer says, you know, my banker already told me what my trade was worth, or the credit union already told me what it was worth. You know, how you handle this objection is either going to make or break your sale. So you want to be very careful of it. On this segment, let's talk about how to handle that banker or that credit union or somebody else that's passing out blue book prices and telling these folks what their car's worth. You know, most salespeople treat that objection and they treat it with resistance. They challenge it and they lose almost every time. With any objection that you get, you want to welcome the objection. When a customer says, we're just looking, you're supposed to say, great. When the customer says, I'm not buying, you're supposed to say, I understand. When the customer says, my banker told me what my trade was worth, the first words out of your mouth should be, great. Let's welcome the objection. When you welcome an objection, it diffuses the situation. If you challenge it, it makes it worse. So we definitely want to welcome it. And we'll talk about some words and things to say. One thing you need to understand about trade values and why trades are such a touchy thing. 96% of the people who leave without buying, who heard a value on their trade, left because of the trade value on their car. Not the price on your car, but the value on their car. And if you got some managers listening to this, when you're working a deal, if you have a choice of dropping the price $1,000 and going up $1,000 on their car, go up $1,000 on their car. They'll be shopping their car down the street and not the price of your new car down the street if they are going to go shop the competition. So try to remember that. Another thing you have to remember is never knock the trade. You know, even if on their way down there to trade this thing, they said, whoa, what a piece of junk. When they pull up on the lot and you walk out there and say, whoa, what a piece of junk. I guarantee they're going to start defending it, and now you're going to have a hard time closing this sale. So never knock the trade. Always be careful of that. In fact, in just a second, we're going to talk about how to do a silent walk around. We need to devalue the trade, but we don't ever want to knock it. You also want to start setting yourself up. You know that you're going to have a problem with trades from the minute you greet the customer out on the lot. So why not set yourself up right? When you're out there and you introduce yourself and you're investigating, and you say, well, y'all going to keep that little car or are you going to trade it? As soon as they say we're going to trade it, why not respond with, instead of, oh, okay, what do you want for it? How about instead of that, we're going to trade it. Well, that's great. Boy, we sure been getting a lot of those in on trade lately. And then just let that statement settle and go on about your business. Later, when it's time to negotiate and it's time to talk about the trade values, you've planted a real important seed out there on the lot. Sure been getting a lot of those in on trade lately. We also want to make sure, I hear a lot of salespeople, and I probably did it myself a long time ago. I learned to quit doing it. A lot of people try to kick the trade. Your job is not to investigate to find out how much they owe on their car or what they want for it or what kind of payments they want on the lot. Your job on the lot is to investigate wants and needs, who's going to be driving it, and how they're going to use it. Now, the only reason you'd ever kick the trade is because you qualified people. You found out that they owe a lot more on the car than it's worth, or they want more than it's worth, and you say, you know, you probably ought to sell that thing first and then come on back. And you whip out your dismissal slip and say, here, see you later. You got to quit dismissing people. And have you noticed that every time that you kick the trade, you try to get them to go sell it on their own, they leave? And did you notice they don't ever come back? They don't go sell their car in a penny saver and come back and say, Joe, I sold that car. I picked up a lot of extra money there. They go down the street, talk to the next salesperson, and they trade it at one of these dealerships down the street. They didn't want to sell it on their own. That's why they came down to see you. So quit trying to knock the trade. When we talk about these, this banker objection, the credit union objection, again, we want to hit that with a positive. Now, at the same time, we need to devalue the car in their mind. Now, it helps if you've done a silent walk-around. I hope you know what a silent walk-around is. Silent walk-around is you've got a commitment. You said, Bob, park it in the soul line. We'll pull the keys. Nobody else can drive your car. You have a commitment on their car that they're ready to trade, and then this is your informal appraisal slip. I know you have a formal appraisal slip inside, but before I ever go inside, as soon as I have a commitment, I pull out my informal appraisal slip, and I start saying and doing things that equal you just bought a car. From getting the mileage and the ID number and the tag numbers to, Betty, would you do me a favor and pull your registration out of the glove box? I hate to rummage around in people's stuff. When she gives me that registration, didn't she just agree to buy the car? If I have Bob read me the ID number, Bob, I left my glasses home. Would you do me a favor and just read that to me? When he reads off the ID number, isn't he making a mental agreement to purchase? I want to get this ball rolling as soon as I get that first commitment. Now, when we talk about a silent walk-around, as I'm getting this trade information, I'm going to walk around the car, and this is where it should be fun. You walk around the car, and you don't say anything's wrong with your car. If the fender looks like it went through the trash masher out here, you don't say, whoa, what happened to that? You just walk over and kind of touch it and jot down a little note. Shake your head. Body language, tone, and inflection are real important. You need to say, darn. You look down the side of somebody's car, you see that little ripple in it, that little door ding, you look down that side and you go, shoot. A little minor, shake your head. What happens is when you point out that door ding, Bob and Betty go, Betty, he just found a door ding. Then you walk over to the other side and you look down and it's got a ripple over there and you go, gosh, got you over there too. Just jot down something and they're mentally making these little decisions. You walk over and touch that hole in the seat and you don't say, whoa, big hole in the seat. You just go, darn. You jot something down. Use your informal tire gauge, your depth gauge, and you walk over to that worst tire and you stick your pin in it. You hold it up and you go, You walk over to that star in the windshield and you just touch it. You don't have to say, what happened? You just touch it. They'll tell you. They say, I didn't do that. I was on the freeway. Truck did that. Oh, well, we won't count it then. And you just jot down, Now this silent walk-around starts to help you devalue their car. What we mean by devaluing it, they want a lot more than it's worth. They've forgotten about the dings and dents in this thing. And you're using this silent walk-around to point out to them what's wrong with it. Now, it's handy if you've done that before you go inside when they pull this, banker told me what my car was worth. Again, you want to hit it with a positive, that's great. And now you want to start asking questions that chip away at their confidence in the trade value the banker or the credit union or somebody else gave them. So you just want to plan your questions well. Banker told me what my car's worth. Great. Now, did you just call him on the phone or did you get a chance to drive it? Now, we know the banker didn't drive it, so they're going to respond with, well, no, we called him, but we told him all about it. But I believe we just got a little ding there in their confidence because the banker didn't drive it. Now, when you called him, you got a really nice car out there. There's a couple little things, you know, that one little parking lot ding and that little star in the window and that right rear tire. Did you mention those to him and did he subtract for those? So, well, no, we didn't, but it's a nice car. Oh, I understand. Now, didn't you just get another ding in their confidence? And folks, did you know if the banker was using the most current book? A lot of times they borrow them from us when we're done with them because they don't want to step up and buy these things. Or was, oh yeah, they're going to say, oh yeah, no, we told him all that. They're going to say the right thing, but every one takes a little ding out of the confidence. And again, they already have an overinflated figure to begin with. And folks, in the front of the book, and a lot of times they don't look up there and they forget to tell you folks that, but in the very front of the blue book, it says that these figures are for frontline reconditioned, ready-to-go cars. Do you know if he subtracted the $300 to $500 that we have to spend in normal safety, smog, and everything else to get these cars in good shape out on the lot? Well, no, he didn't, but I'm pretty sure, and I guarantee you what they wanted is down a little bit. If they were thinking they had a $4,000 car, they're thinking they got about a $3,200 car now. And everything you do that chips away at it was positive. You didn't say anything negative about their car, but you've set them up for a more realistic figure, and you're going to need that more realistic figure later on. There's a lot of things that you need to learn to do, but this trade stuff is one of the most important because they fall in love with their car. They won't trade it if they don't feel good about the price. And remember that 96% left because of trade value on their car. If you get the banker or the credit union, always welcome it. That's great. That's great. It's going to save us some time. What did he say? And do you know if he did this? Did you know if he did that? Just chip away at it step by step. That silent walk around is great too. A lot of you already do some of these things. Those of you good at it, go back and role play some of these with the new guys or people that haven't done it. Make a list of the points you got off this, little group discussion, and get to work on this. This one will make you a lot because it's a very common objection. Work on this, and I'll see you in the next segment. Till then, have a great day. Did you ever feel like you missed a sale by just that much? You felt you were that close and then something happened and the whole thing fell apart? You know, it could have been as simple as a single word or a phrase that you said. You know, sometimes in sales we forget that everything we say and everything we do has an effect on the customer. And some are positive and some are negative. From how we look, how we act, and how we sound. Everything matters. On this segment, let's talk about some words. And there's some real casual words we use in the car business, but they get you the wrong impact. We talk about words and selling. We're supposed to make people think, act, and feel positive about this purchase. If you say a word that just does the opposite of that, then you're defeating your purpose in sales. We call these rejection words. Words like buy. I don't know how to explain it to you or tell you, but people don't want to buy a car. They don't want you to sell them a car. And a lot of us say, well, Bob, is that the car you want to buy? Now, that may seem like a very minor point, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but what could we change that word to? Instead of this is the car you'd like to buy, what could we say instead? I heard somebody say, is this the car you'd like to own? Or is that the one you want to get? Almost anything but buy and sell. I don't want to say, I sold Bob a car. Sounds like Bob had nothing to do with it. People don't want to be sold a car. So if I was talking to Bob's neighbor, and I would prospecting or trying to get referrals, I'd say, you know, I helped Bob get his new car the other day when he was in. And he mentioned that you might be in the market for a new or used car before long. Was he correct? So I don't want to use the word buy, I don't want to use the word sold. A lot of other words have an impact. The word payment. Now, we've been taught in the past we're not supposed to say payment. What are we supposed to say? Investment. We're not supposed to say down payment. We're supposed to say initial investment. And those are slightly different words, but again, they have an effect. Now, I don't really use either one of those very much. When I'm talking about payments, I'm normally sitting down with a pencil and a piece of paper in my hand. We're about ready to start negotiating or doing the paperwork. I don't refer to them as payments. I just say this thing's going to run you about $250 a month. It's going to run you. That works a lot better for me than the payments will be or your investment each month is going to be. We're going to need about $1,500 up front, or we're going to need about $1,500 down. We're going to need a $1,500 initial investment. You can change the words, but especially on payments, those are ones we use a lot. Oh, it's going to run you somewhere around $250, $275. Is that about what you had in mind? Or it's going to run you about, if you're selling Cadillacs or Mercedes, it's going to run you about $900, $9.5, somewhere around $1,000. Is that about what you were thinking? Not your payments are going to be. Another couple of words. Since we were kids, weren't we taught not to sign contracts? Didn't Mom and Dad say, as soon as a contract comes out, you better read that thing, you better have an attorney look at it, and you better not make any harsh decisions or rash decisions? So we were taught not to sign contracts. So when somebody, if you're talking to your customer, said, come on in, need you to sign a contract, didn't a little red flag just go up? I think their mom and dad told them the same thing. What could we say instead of the word sign? Okay, I heard that. Authorize, approve, initial. Let me have your John Henry on the check mark there. Anything but sign it. And what else could we say for contract? What better words could we use? Heard somebody say paperwork or agreement. Those are excellent words. I use the paperwork and wrap it up words when I'm closing. I find them real effective. It gets rid of the pressure. They still know what we're going to go in and do. I don't say, let's go in and sell you this thing and we'll have you sign a contract. I say, come on in, we'll wrap this up. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we take care of the paperwork? I use the wrap it up and paperwork words. Do they know what wrap it up means? Do they know what paperwork means? Yeah, they bought cars before. They just didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. So they know exactly what's going on. So we don't want to say that word contract. We'd rather say words like paperwork or agreement. How about the word credit app? A lot of you are confused as to what to say when you're there pulling out those sheets of paper. Too many of us apologize. And we say, apologize, I have to get some credit information on you folks. I need to fill out a credit app. Don't use the word credit app. I don't even talk about credit information. You could call it a customer statement. I just pull out the form and say, let's see, I need some basic information here, and you live on what street? Well, I live at 123 Oak Street, but what is that? Well, I need some basic information for the bank. They're going to ask me a lot of questions. We need to be able to figure your interest rate. And where did you work? And you get your minor reflex objections as you're getting your customer statement or credit app. But you want to stay away from that word if you can. You want to refer to it as basic information or at least customer statement, not the word credit app. Allowance for your trade. Our manager is going to allow you so much for your trade. When you were a kid and got allowance, was it ever enough? I bet it wasn't. I bet you always wished that you could have gotten more. And when you say, we're going to allow you so much for your car, Bob, I bet Bob's going to wish he got a lot more. What could we say instead of allowance for your trade? What would be a better word, better phrase? How about current market value on your car? Or what else could you use? Current market value works real well. Asking price on our cars, have you noticed that I'm always amazed when customers ask how much it is. Aren't most of them looking right at it when they ask? I noticed if the car's $17,383, most people turn to you and say, Joe, how much is that? And if you built rapport with people, you can get around a little bit and say, Bob, I'm surprised you can't see that from there. It's $17,300. And then you want to get off of it. By the way, who's the lucky one? I don't use market value. I don't use adjusted market value. I just say it's. How much is it? Not the asking price is. It's $17,300. When you say asking price, what are you telling the customer? You're telling them you don't expect to get sticker. You don't want to say we're asking or we'd like to get, or don't worry about the price, we're real negotiable. When they ask you the price, tell them the price. For those of you who don't know how to explain market value, if you lived in Spokane, Washington, you had a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on a 1/4 acre with a picket fence. Now, I'm guessing that house would run somewhere around $60,000, $75,000, $100,000, depending on neighborhood. When you're trying to explain market value to a customer, if you have that adjustment, that addendum, that extra money on there, a lot of times it says adjusted market value. When you're explaining it, say, now, Bob, the adjusted market value on this is $17,300. Now, you need to maybe give them an explanation of market value. If you take that little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, white picket fence, 1/4 acre in Spokane, and it's a $100,000 house there, if you move that thing down to Dallas, Texas, put it in one of those nice neighborhoods, what's that same little house going to cost now? Same house, the market changed. I'm guessing it's going to run you $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Take that same house, bring it out here and stick it in Laguna Beach, California on one of those nice little hills, prop it up on one side, you'll have to. And what would that same 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1/4 acre picket fence run you? You're right, $2 or $3 or $4 million. Same house, different market. You need to use that in your explanations, especially when you're trying to justify a price on a car. They walk on the lot and say, I'm looking for a white one of these. Do you have one? Gosh, if we're lucky. Helps you plant the seed for higher growth later. And when you were explaining the car market value, you know, you picked the most popular color. If you were buying this thing out in Idaho somewhere, it wouldn't much matter. Here in California, that white color is the most popular. In Idaho, I think it's silver or gray. So stay away from asking price. If you have to explain market value, learn how to explain it. Why don't we? I hear a lot of salespeople say, why don't we go inside and see what we can do? And there's two things wrong with that. They think it's a closing question. It doesn't have anything to do with closing. You just said you want to go inside and see what we can do. There's no commitment from the customer to do a single thing in that question. It also is a bad question. Why don't we? Think about that. What does why don't we ask for? I believe it asks for every negative you can think of for not doing what I'm about to ask you to do. Why don't we go inside? I don't want to. Instead of why don't we go inside, what could we say instead? Let's go inside. Come on inside and we'll take care of the paperwork. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we wrap this up? The word appointment. Another one of those rejection words. Who do you make appointments with? doctors, dentists, accountants, IRS agents. You generally make an appointment with people who cause you pain, if I remember right. Now, that seems like a minor point too, but when you say, why don't we make an appointment for Saturday morning? A little red flag goes up, pain. Don't want to meet you on Saturday morning. So what word could we use instead of appointment? How about instead of, can we make an appointment for Saturday morning around 9 or 10? How about, can we get together Saturday morning around 9 or 10? And you offer them that either or choice of questions. The word today is another word that sounds good. Would you buy it today? When you're closing, you don't want the today word. You want to switch the today word for the now word. It sounds like found a perfect car. Let's go ahead and wrap this up so you can get out of here and start enjoying your new car. Don't close and say, would you go ahead and do this today? If I can do this, you're ready to take it now. How many times have you closed on today and gone back in and done what the customer asked you to do in the negotiation, got their payments in line? You said, okay, Bob, I got this thing wrapped up for you. And he said, well, I'll think about it. Oh, now, wait a minute. You said you'd take it today. Well, if I understand right, today lasts till about midnight. I'm going to go check a couple other places and I'll be back. When you get that final commitment, Bob, now if we can do this now, you're ready to take it. Always go for the now. How far apart are we is a negative term. The only, what could we use instead of how far apart are we? When they're in looking at a car and you say, well, that's a lot. Well, how far apart are we, Bob? That's negative. What could we turn that to? How close are we? Now, the only time I change that is when I'm working on the payment with a customer. If we were in negotiating, they said I said 17.3, and he said, well, I don't want to pay 17.3. I'll give you 16.5. And you go through the trade and the down and the payments. You get over here at the payments, and the payments ought to be 500, and he wants to pay 300. I use that how far apart we are as a way to bring everything down to the payment, because I want to work on the easiest thing to work here. So when he says, well, that's 3, I only want to pay 3, you want 5. So Bob, that's not our, and he says, and I only want to pay 16.5 for the car. You know, Bob, the price of the car doesn't matter. What we give you your trade doesn't matter. Here's our problem. We're pretty far apart. So I talk about how far apart we are down here in the payment. We need 5, he wants to pay 3. I use the negative term in that case to bring their attention to the payments. You know, it don't matter if we gave you the car for $16.5. Doesn't matter if we gave you more than you want for your trade. We're still $200 apart. $200, 60 months, sounds like we're somewhere around 10, 12 grand apart. That's a lot. This doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. Here's our problem. Let's focus on this. What can we do to make this better? I use it in the negative there to focus the attention on the payment, and it is the payment that matters. If I understand this right, you can get every sale down to budget. It's what you take out of your pocket that matters each month. It's not how much it costs, it's whether you can afford this. And if you can't afford this, no matter how much this is, you're not going to buy the car and take it home today. Hundreds, thousands, and dollars, I don't believe I ever said this is $17,383. I believe I said it's 17.3. You might say, when they say, how much is it? Oh, it's just a little under 18. It's just a little over 17. It's right around 12. It's a little over 20. Well, it's about 80, 90, something like that. Round it off, but leave out the hundreds, thousands, and dollars. Now, why would you need to do that? Because it makes it sound more expensive. When is the only time you might want to keep the hundreds and thousands of dollars in there? You're right, when you're talking about their trade. How about you're wrong? Bob says, well, that's too much for that car. Well, no, it isn't. That's saying you're wrong. You want to light people up really quick. Tell them they're wrong. Instead of saying you're wrong, or when the banker told me what my trade's worth, you're wrong. How about learning the feel, felt, and found? Bob says, whoa, you know, that's way too much money for this car. Instead of saying, no, it isn't. How about, Bob, I understand how you feel. In fact, when I first got in the car business, I kind of felt the same way too. You know, the prices seemed real high until I found out most of the increases we've had over the last few years have been improvement cost. In fact, let me show you some of the improvements on the new Ford Escort. Let's turn that negative into a positive with the words feel, felt, and found. I understand how you feel. I felt the same way too until I found out. The last word or words that we would talk about here would be trade slang. You got to ditch the trade slang. You got to get rid of the trade slang. We were in class the other day and somebody brought up the word program car. And there was another guy that was just about to start selling cars tomorrow. And I said, do you know what a program car is? And he said, no, not really. I said, well, what's a brass hat? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, what's a hole in the roof and a real nice set of wheels? And I don't know. What's SRS, ABS? I don't know. Every time you say a word your customers don't understand, you stop their thinking right there in mid-thought. The problem is you keep talking, but now they've stopped thinking. They're trying to figure out, well, what's SRS? And what you do is you create an opportunity to objections to form, and we don't want any objections. We want to work through this as quickly as possible. And just a tip, Santa is the only one who drives a sled. Don't ever refer to their car as a sled or anything negative like that. Remember, people fall in love with that old car out there. Now, I said at the beginning of this, and 2 or 3 times, some of this might seem very minor. The difference between buy and own. The difference between contract and paperwork. I would agree that it's very minor. Almost every one of these words is minor. Let me show you something. If it took 100 points to make a sale, you had to score 100 total points in this sale out here. And let's say that word buy. Buy was only worth .001. And you said, is this the car you want to buy? Remember we started with, is have you ever lost a sale by just that much? Wouldn't this be called just that much? Wouldn't sure be a shame to do a nice job out here and end up with 99.999. And that means no sale. You really need to understand that everything you say and everything you do has an effect out here. And everything you do and everything you say matters. You want to clean up your words. You want to get rid of these rejection words. They're costing you sales, they're costing you gross. Why not make a list of the ones that you're using? Why not jot those down during the day? Every time you catch yourself saying one of these things, make a good list, carry it in your pocket, review it often, so that you can switch words. You want to have some more fun as a group. Put a bucket in a corner and throw a quarter in it every time somebody hears somebody using one of these words, and at the end of the week, buy pizza and beer. First week, you could probably feed the homeless in Spokane with all the rejection words that we say out on the lot. Since you're throwing a quarter or a buck in there, by the end of the second week, you're probably down to a couple of 6-packs and a couple of pizzas. By the third or fourth week, you're down to a beer and a slice. Work these things out of your vocabulary. You're in sales, and they're costing you money in sales. Big money or little money, it's sure a shame to miss one sale by 1 point. Think about it, talk about it, get to work on it. And I'll see you on the next segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. How'd you like to make building rapport easier? Wouldn't it be great to have some extra urgency you could put in a sale, and it'd be kind of nice to have a closing to it, wouldn't it? You know, you can do all that with one extra question in your investigation. Now, when we talk about investigating, we know we're supposed to be talking about finding wants and needs and desires. Who's the car for? How are you going to use it? Business or pleasure? Ride by yourself? Carry people with you? Those kind of questions. Not how much do you want to spend? Not what do you want for your trade? Not what kind of payments you guys are looking for. When we talk about adding some urgency, I want you to write this question down. Is this for a special occasion, anniversary, birthday, something like that, or because you guys deserve a new car? Again, is this for a special occasion, anniversary, birthday, something like that, or just because you guys deserve a new car? Now again, this will come in the middle of all of your other questions. How are you going to use it, business or pleasure? By the way, I didn't even ask, is this for a special occasion, anniversary, birthday, something like that, or just because you guys deserve a new car? Now, what kind of response are you going to get? You probably get one, maybe 3 responses. Some people may say, oh, it's not for an anniversary or anything like that. We're just getting a car. So you deserve it then. Well, I don't know if, all right. Well, I mean, it's kind of nice to go ahead and, reward ourselves for all that hard work we do. Or they may say, well, it's not an anniversary now. It was our anniversary a month ago. Oh, congratulations. This is going to be a great belated anniversary present then, isn't it? It'd be a lot better than all that diamonds and jewelry and everything else he always buys you, huh, Betty? Well, I don't know. Make it fun. Or they may say, well, my birthday's coming up. Well, great. This is going to be an early birthday present. Congratulations. Now, what would be the advantage of creating that birthday present, anniversary, belated or otherwise, thought in their mind? Wouldn't that help some people make that decision to go ahead and get it today? You know, when you're buying an expensive product, fear comes in. When fear comes in, procrastination follows right after that. You want to make sure that you're doing something that helps them make the decision to go ahead and do it today. Now, when you're in there closing and, well, I don't know if we should do it. Come on, it's your anniversary. Let's get this thing over with. Oh, okay, we'll take it. You've got birthdays, you've got anniversaries. How about Mother's Day, Father's Day? You know, you ought to start talking about Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, things that come up all the time. You know when those are. You ought to start talking about them about 30 days prior. Father's Day coming up. It's going to be a great Father's Day present, isn't it? You kids are probably pretty excited about getting Dad this new car, huh? Should you get the kids involved all the time? Absolutely. Too many salespeople ignore the kids. Little rugrats, get out of here. Instead of doing that, let's make friends with the kids. Let's get them on our side, not just in this case, but in every sale that you make. Talk to them, get them excited, talk about how they're going to use it, how much fun this car is going to be for the family. Same thing with Mother's Day. Christmas, I used to start selling Christmas presents. I quit selling cars day after Thanksgiving, and I started creating this thought about a Christmas present.
They walked on the lot, and I said, congratulations, it's going to be a great Christmas present, isn't it? And they said, well, it's not a Christmas present. Well, it's a car, isn't it? And you're getting it, and it's Christmas. So why don't we make it fun? Let's go ahead and make a Christmas present out of it. What do you kids think? They're going to get all excited. They say, well, yeah, that'd be neat. These things will also help you later when you're closing the sale and you get down to that $20 a month apart. And Dad said, well, that's kind of expensive. You got the kids excited about it before. You talked about a Christmas present, anniversary present, whatever it is. And you get the kids excited and you say, well, $20, I guess we're about 75 cents a day apart. That's what it looks like. Not that much. But, you know, everybody's on a budget. I got an idea. Which one of you kids will give up part of your allowance next week so Mom and Dad can get this new Christmas present for the whole family? I'll bet you about 4 or 5 little hands go up there, and then you can look at the kids and say, well, that's neat of you. And look at Dad and say, well, we don't want to spoil Christmas for the kids now, do we? A little light pressure there. It's kind of fun, but you'll also find that it gets you over the hump sometime. Is this for a special occasion, anniversary, birthday, something like that, or just because you guys deserve it? Have fun with this one. Practice, drill, and rehearse. Talk about it, and I'll see you on the next segment. Till then, have a great day.
Let me give you a real quick tip. Things I notice in our sales classes and our managers classes, even our dealer classes, is most of the people watching the tape, listening to the class, think that the information is about somebody else. They think the mistakes we're covering is about somebody else. They think the skills and the habits and the attitudes we talk about developing the other guy needs. And they forget that they're the ones that need them as well. All these things we cover on tape, you need to sit down and make a list of everything that we talk about. You need to sit down and evaluate yourself. And you need to try to do it honestly without the highballs. You know, when I first got back in the car business, I evaluated myself as a closer, and I gave myself an 8 or a 9. I evaluated myself on presentations, demonstration, gave myself an 8 or a 9. And then I was noticing on my list I had only 8s and 9s, but the problem was before that I was a 10-car a month person. You can't get 8s and 9s and sell 10 cars. I'm sorry, folks, this doesn't work that way. Then I had fun, and I went ahead and highballed myself and got it out of my system, threw that one away, wrote a new list, and started doing it accurately. If you're closing 2 out of 10 people, you get a 2 as a closer. I don't care how much product knowledge you have, I don't care how hard you try or how nice you are. If you're closing 2 out of 10, you're a 2. It's okay, it's no big deal, but you need to learn how to improve that. And you don't improve unless you act on the information. You have to sit down, you have to make a plan, you have to evaluate yourself, you need to set a goal. You need to come up with a long-term goal on fixing a particular problem, even if you're good at follow-up. Gosh, why not get better? If you're already a good closer, why not work on it so that you can be a really, really strong closer? If you're good at all the things and you come to work, how about learning to work just a little bit smarter? Sit down and think about this stuff. It usually isn't about the other person. It's generally about the person listening to this. You know, that person in the mirror is the one that we really need to learn to deal with. That's the one that'll make us or break us. So stop and think about this stuff. We're not talking about the other person. We're talking about you. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Till then, see ya.
That's the end of this.
A lot of salespeople, even good ones who are selling a lot of cars and making a lot of money, end up getting out of the car business. Not because it wasn't a great profession, but they just kind of wear out. They get what we call burnout. And it's sure a shame to give up the highest paying job in America because we didn't handle the job correctly. You know, you're either going to go to work and you're going to control the job, or the job's going to control you. Let's talk about burnout. Let's talk about how to avoid it. Let's talk about how to be productive during a day. First of all, why do you have to put in so many hours? Well, I know somebody just said because the dealership requires it. You know, most schedules aren't as bad as most of us portray them as being. And in real life, if you could do a better job while you're there, you'd be able to go home sooner. There's always some time left over. When we talk about getting things done, though, one of the reasons we have to work so long is because we come to work and we hang around and do nothing all day. This is about the only job I've ever had in my career, in my lifetime, where you're not required to do anything. I used to have good work habits. I'd go to work, and then now and then I'd take a break. In the car business, I learned to come to work to break, and then now and then I'd go to work. If you just looked at your average work day, most people in class tell us they put in somewhere between 9 to 12 hours, something like that. Now, that's how many hours they're there. That wasn't the question. If you look at the real question, how many of the hours that you're there do you work, and how many of the hours are productive? And most people say, well, give or take about 3. So we work long, but we don't do much in the long, hard work while we're there. Now, common sense just says if you put in a better day, you could get out of there sooner. Now, if you're making 10 sales a month and you make $30,000 a year, from a 3-hour a day job. That's not bad part-time money. A little math question here. If you put in 9 hours instead, how many cars would you sell? Not stay there 9 hours, but if you actually work 9 hours. I believe that comes to about 30, and I think that works out to about 90. That's how the people in sales who make a lot of money make a lot of money. First of all, they get productive. Now, just being organized at work and working your shift is one thing. That would give you the opportunity to go home sooner. I always stayed late because I didn't sell anything. I screwed around most of the day, visited with the guys, drank coffee, shot the breeze, and then, whoops, shift's over, but I can't go. I got to stay because I didn't sell anything. So I ended up spending a lot of extra hours that I didn't need to. I believe you'd also have to spend more hours, again, because you weren't selling anything, if you had poor selling skills too, wouldn't you? If I don't have the selling skills that I need to sell, then I've got to end up talking to more people. More people is more tiring. Now, if I also don't have the selling skills, I've got to talk to more people, and I've got to work longer to pull out some sales. I think it's also more frustrating when you're talking to people who came to get a car, you lack the skills that it takes, and they don't buy it. That's real frustrating. You go in, and you're mad, you're upset, you learn to blame the manager, the market, the weather. It was really the skills that we had. Most of us don't do any follow-up. Wouldn't you work less if you had more repeat business? Well, sure. Percent closing ratio that you're going to get standing out there on the lot waiting for something to happen. We need to improve our work habits, we need to improve our skills, and you certainly need to start doing your follow-up. You're supposed to be doing something all day that keeps you busy. And I don't mean busy work, I mean doing something that has to do with selling a car now or at some point in the future. A lot of people confuse how long they're there with how hard they work. And this example is pretty correct for most salespeople. Now, burnout does something else to you too. It not only wears on you, it can make you sick. And I've known a lot of people that just burned out, couldn't take it anymore. I see a lot of 18, 20 car a month people get out of the car business just because they got tired. They don't ever take any time off. You have to have time off. You have to relax. And we talk about the effect that has. Okay, so you say, well, I quit and I went on and did something else. Sure, but you got out of the highest paying profession to go do that, or you had to change jobs. Who loses when you burn out? You lose. You lose sales and income you could have had. You've got to go to a new place, whether it's a new industry, new profession, or just a new dealership. You've got to make all those new friends again so you can hang around there on the huddle and do nothing again so that you can burn out there as well. You've got, I think your family loses. I think your dealership loses. I think your customers lose. I think everybody around loses when you wear yourself out so much that you can't work, and there's no point. Let's figure out how to get a good day out of this. A couple things you can do, and this is a short topic, and I understand that. You got to just get healthy. It's time to get healthy. It's time to, you've got a very stressful job. You spend a lot of hours. A lot of it's on your feet. You need to be in good shape. And I don't mean you have to pump iron every day, but you need to do something. Take a walk. You need to eat right. You need to get a good night's sleep. You know, partying hard the night before a work day is going to cost you several $100s during that work day. And again, mostly you just need to come to work smart. One thing I did to help me out and share it with you is I found me a buddy at work. I found a guy that I could turn to when I was off, somebody that I trusted, somebody that would do a good job with my customers. And I just said, gosh, if I'm not here, just make sure you see Paul. I might be with a customer picking up a car or something, so if you don't see me, make sure you ask for him. And then I was able to go home after my shift was over. And Paul helped me out, and the last month we worked, we probably split 15 or 20 deals. And we both sold a lot of cars. You take away the splits, we would have both had a lot fewer sales, and we'd have spent an awful lot of extra time at the dealership. Another thing I learned that helped me a lot, we talk about selling skills, closing skills. You know, when you're selling a car today, and you're on that, if you work that late shift, you're on the 3 to 9 shift today, tomorrow you're on the early shift normally, and you get off early at 3 or 4 or whatever time it is. You're selling a car tonight, but the car hasn't been serviced, it's not quite ready to deliver. It's going to take you an hour tomorrow morning to get the thing cleaned up. A lot of us end up working extra hours because we ask customers bad questions. Most of us say, well, now, Bob, as you hand them their paperwork tonight, you say, Bob, I'm going to get the car cleaned up first thing tomorrow morning. When do you want to pick it up? Now, the average customer, I believe, works 8 to 5. They're on a different shift than you are tomorrow. You'd like to go home at 3, but when you throw out that, when do you want to pick it up question, what do most of them tell you? I think they say, well, you know, I'm off at 5, I guess we'll come in around 6:37, something like that. It's going to be good for you. And you're going, yeah, you wish they didn't have to do that, but you have to agree with them because you'd have to be there for the delivery, or you certainly want to be. Bad question. bad response. And we all know that you have to hang around, and then you hang around there till 6, and they don't come till 9. They say, I'm sorry, we were having dinner, and we watched Roseanne or whatever came on, and we got a little behind. I hope you don't mind. And you say, no, no problem. And now you put in another 12-hour day for no reason. Learn some new questions. Learn to use some either-or questions to make some appointments to control the conversation. That night when you're handing them the paperwork, go ahead and make the same statement. I'll get the car cleaned up first thing tomorrow morning. It'll only take us about an hour. Did you want to pick it up around 10, 10:30, or would noon be better? Did you want to pick it up at 10, 10:30, or noon? You'll probably get a lot of people respond with, gosh, Joe, I kind of wanted to pick it up after work. I know, and unfortunately, though, I won't be able to be here. I've already scheduled an appointment somewhere else, and I did want to deliver it to you. There's a lot of things I wanted to show you. Could I maybe, gosh, I can bring you guys a sandwich. I can come down and work and pick you up if that helps out, but it'd sure help me out a lot if you would. Oh, sure, Joe, we'll be in at noon. Now you don't have to live at the dealership the next night until midnight. You don't have to do the 12-hour days. If you just learn how to sell, if you just learn to go to work, and if you just get in slightly better shape, you can avoid burnout, and you'll sell more cars, and you'll make more money, and you'll have more fun. You guys think about this and talk about it. This one's important. And I'll see you on the next segment. Until then, have a great day. If you read all the surveys about a negotiation, you'll find that most people are not only okay with it, they actually prefer it. See, that's not the problem. What they hate is negotiating with an amateur. They hate it when we tell them one thing on the lot and go inside and tell them something else. They hate it when out there we say, oh, we can save you a ton. Go inside and the manager pencils you back at sticker price plus. On this segment, let's talk about how to set ourselves up properly for a price negotiation so that we don't have to give up thousands of dollars in sales and gross. We're losing gross, but we're also losing sales because we can't get together on price. So this one error, or not doing it correctly, is costing you an awful lot of money long term. The last place I worked as a salesman, my manager out on the lot would mark down every other Z on a Saturday at $3,000 off sticker price. The only way you can sell cars there and make money was to sell the ones in between and convince the customer they couldn't buy that other car for the discounted price. Now, when you and I were faced in that situation before, what little script are we taught when you're looking at the blue one and it's not marked down and the brown one sitting next to it is marked down, and the customer said, well, I like this blue car, but I'd like to get it for the price of that brown one. What were we taught to respond with? I think I heard it out there. I like this car, but I want that one. What can you do? Weren't we taught to say, if I could do it, would you buy it? That's exactly what you don't want to say, because you just set yourself up for a negotiation and thousands of dollars off. Now you got the customer thinking they can get a discount. I need you guys to learn a new word. It's called no. I like this blue car, but can I get it for the price of that brown one? No. Now you need to explain why. No. I don't know why my manager marks some cars down out here. You know, some have been in inventory a little bit too long, some are bad colors, some have minor lot damage. I probably got some cars around here I can save you thousands on, but this is one of our most popular cars, most popular colors, most popular models. You know, before we worry about price, though, first let's make sure you guys like it. Who wants to drive it first, Bob, you or Betty? And let's go on controlling the conversation, investigating, taking the next step in the sale. But now we've planted a seed, haven't we? Now, I'm not going to tell you that they're not going to ask you for a discount inside. Most probably still will. But haven't we planted a seed that there won't be any discount, or there won't be much discount, or this is going to be tough to do? Isn't that a lot better than saying, oh, sure, we'll give it a shot. We'll do what we can. We never lost a deal for a few $100s. You got to quit saying those things out there. You need to be consistent on the lot. When somebody says, how much is it? Have you noticed they're normally looking right at the sticker price? How much is it? Well, I'm surprised you couldn't see that from there. It's $17,300. By the way, who's the lucky one who gets the car, you or somebody else? And let's go ahead and bypass price and get off of it. You got to quit using your we're asking. You got to quit saying we'd like to get. You got to quit saying don't worry, we're real negotiable. You got to quit saying we never missed a deal for a few $100s, because every one of those statements implies that there's going to be a discount. Now, this doesn't mean we won't discount it later, but it means you'll have to discount it less later by setting it up properly. Consistency out on the lot is one of the most important things, and until you're more consistent, you're going to have a hard time inside. A couple other things you need to do out there on the lot. When a customer comes in and says, I'm looking for that blue Z, do you guys have one? Instead of saying, oh, sure, how about, gosh, if we're lucky. Now, what does that imply? It means that car is hard to get, sells quick. Gosh, if we're lucky. And now when he says, can I get this car for the brown price? Gosh, no, this is one of our most popular models, most popular color. I got another car over here I can save you thousands on. I never tell people they can't get a discount. I say don't talk price on the lot, and we're not going to talk price, don't misunderstand. But if you just say no discount period on anything on the lot, then you've got a little problem on your hand. You're going to add some resistance. So I always offer people something they can get a discount on. Gosh, I don't think they can do that on this one. This is our most popular model. I got several cars around here. You know, we probably got some old inventory, minor lot damage, bad colors that we probably save you a ton on. Don't you have that manager special you'd love to get rid of? That old demo out there with too many miles on it. It's got that right rear tire almost wore out. You'd love to get rid of that, and you'd make a good commission on it. So, yeah, I got a whole bunch of cars around here you can save a ton on. Unfortunately, you picked the most popular color. Now you need to back out of it. Before we worry about that, though, first let's make sure you guys like the car. The most important part of this is consistency on the lot. The next most important part is making sure you do your job on the lot. You're supposed to build value on this car. You're supposed to present. You're supposed to demonstrate. To build value, you have to have investigated. You have to build rapport. There are no shortcuts out there and big grosses inside. You do your job on the lot. You set yourself up correctly. You need to be consistent. You need to plant some seeds, gosh, if we're lucky, so that when you do go inside to start negotiating, you're negotiating from sticker price plus, not from some discounted figure. Now, along those lines, if you're going to close with that same old close we were taught, gosh, we can work this out the way you want to buy it. Can we sell it to you? Now you did a nice job out there, but you just blew it with your closing question. Now you've said, let's go in and negotiate. Don't close on the price of the car. Close on the car. We've done a nice job on the lot, built value, built rapport, investigated, presented, demonstrated. We planted these seeds. We set them up for no negotiation inside. How about a close instead? Sounds like we found a perfect car. How do you want to register it, in your name or her name? And go inside at sticker price plus. This is really important. You're losing a lot of gross you don't need to. And all you have to do is practice, drill, and rehearse. Get your managers to work with you on this. You guys sit around and talk about this when this segment's over, and work on it. You know, it doesn't seem like much, but if you picked up another couple $100 in gross, that's another $50 in your pocket. You do that on 10 cars, that's $500. I know a lot of people go get a part-time job to make $500. You don't need to. You just need to learn to do what you're doing better than you're doing it. There's a lot of sales and a lot of gross out here. Don't blow it from lack of saying the right words and doing the right things. I'll talk to you guys on another segment. Until then, have a great day. How'd you like to have a close that would work with those people who say, Joe, I think we're just going to hold off a little bit. This is a lot of money. There's a technique that'll work because people are trying to justify buying this car. They wouldn't be standing there if they didn't want it. We know the statistics, 78% are going to buy a car, 85% came to get it. But you know this is an expensive product, and when you're buying something expensive, there's a lot of fear. Fear of making a bad decision and all that other. So we want to be able to overcome this. And this technique we're going to talk about is based on logic. Now that customer just said, I'm going to hold off for a little bit. Let's also assume that they're driving a 2.5-year-old car. They're trying to trade it. It's probably on a 4 or 5 or 6-year contract because they tried to go with the lowest payment last time. It's a safe bet they bought a cheap car last time instead of the one they'd like to have. And that's the basis of this close. Guy just said, Joe, we're going to hold off a little bit. It's just too much money. We probably shouldn't even trade now. We're going to try to put ourselves in a better position. Or they're looking at a cheaper car and they can't decide on it. This close works great, and again, it's based on logic. This is the long-term savings close. That's the technical title of it. Now, let's say, again, we're closing, and I said, sound like found a perfect car, and he said, no, I think we better hold off. You know, it's just a real big decision. I'm still making payments on this one. I'm just kind of on a pretty tight budget. Tell them a story, create some logic, so you know I understand how you feel. In fact, when I got my first couple cars, I felt the same way, and I did the same thing you probably did. When you bought that little car you're trying to trade now, I'm guessing that that wasn't the one you really wanted, was it? Well, no, we kind of wanted another one. So that's the one you settled for because you felt it was affordable, am I right? Yeah, Joe, that's kind of true. Well, and I bet you can still remember that other car that you wished you'd have gotten. Yeah, you're right. I really wanted that other blue one they had there. It was a lot more money than I can afford. You know, I did the same thing. First couple cars I bought cars that I could afford. And I don't mean that I should have bought a car that I couldn't afford, but what I noticed is I bought a car that I didn't really like because I could afford it. And then what I noticed was a few weeks, few months, year later, it was easily affordable. That other car that I wished I'd have gotten, it would have been affordable because I always made more money. What else I noticed about buying cars I didn't like is I tried to trade them too soon. It's kind of like now, I'm guessing you've got a 4-year, 5-year contract on that? Yeah, it's 5 years, 60 months. And you're trying to trade it, not because you like it, because you dislike it. And again, I bet you didn't like it early on. If you bought a car that you really liked, when I finally realized that, I started buying things that I liked. When you buy something you like, if you'd bought that other car that we were talking about, that blue one you mentioned, you wouldn't be trading now, would you? You'd have kept it longer, wouldn't you, because you really liked it? In the end, doesn't that save you money? You know, Bob, you can either buy a cheap car or you can buy one you like. If you turn around now and buy a cheap car, or you hold off and don't buy anything, you're going to drive that car you don't like, you're going to make payments on it. It sounds like you're just being cautious about your budget, am I right? Well, let me ask you a question. If we sit down and fiddle with figures, and you weren't comfortable with the budget, I wouldn't expect you to get it. But if we sit down and fiddle with figures and you were comfortable with them, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in that perfect little car that you love so much? Joe, if the payment's not too high, I guess I'd get it. What would payments run? I don't know. Let's go in and see. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we wrap this up? Well, what are they going to give me for my trade? I'll have my manager take a look at it while we're doing the paperwork. And again, if we don't get you enough for it, don't get it. But if this thing fits your budget, it sounds like you got a brand new car. Were we going to register this in Bob or Robert? This close works great. It's based on logic. You have to help people through this decision a lot of times. They want the car. They're just afraid they're going to make a bad decision. And you may have to help them make a decision to spend just a little bit more than they meant to spend. But I believe everybody's going to make a little bit more money a week from now or a month from now or a year from now. And as you go along, you find ways to fit things into your budget. Close on budget, not on price. And you'll find that it's so much easier once you get inside. Then you get creative in how to combine some of those Visas, MasterCards, those kind of things. Get the agreement. If everything works out and you're okay with your budget, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it? Try this one, but don't go try it on a customer. Try it on each other. Get in those little groups we always talk about. You guys role play this. Be a pretend customer, but don't be the toughest customer you can dream up. Get good at this gradually. Take it step by step. Be an easy customer today, a little tougher customer tomorrow, a little tougher customer the next day, and then go out and try it on a real customer after you have your words down, your tone, inflection, your body language down. Build yourself a story. Think about it. Create a logical solution for their problem. You guys work on this one. This one will make you some money, and I'll talk to you on the next segment. Until then, have a great day. Wouldn't it be great if everybody who came on the lot could just buy? They had great credit. You wouldn't have to do hardly anything. You'd just come in, lay down, write you a check for the full amount, and wake up, it's not going to happen. In real life, most salespeople miss sales they could have had because they're out there pre-qualifying their customers. Now in this segment, let me give you a couple quick tips on qualifying. And the biggest quick tip I could ever give you is just don't do it. And let me explain why. If you look up qualify in the dictionary, it has two very definite meanings. Do people have the desire to purchase? Do they have the ability to purchase? Now let's take these one at a time. The desire part. Common sense. Are you familiar with the statistics? You know, we talked about these on some other segments in our other classes. Are you familiar with that 78% of the people who go out and look at a car or truck buy one? Now, if you didn't know that, now you do. Not only that, 82% or 85% of the people who go out and look at them buy one. They specifically went to get it. 78% are going to buy, 85% came to get it. And all you have to do is make sure that they get a chance to buy it. But that doesn't come with pre-qualifying. That comes with building value, building rapport, and everything else. You have to assume they're there to buy. And anything less than that's going to cost you sales and gross. You walk out that door with the assumption that they're there to get it. So we've handled the desire part. That's just common sense. They are there to get it. And even if they can't get it, they sure wish they could get it. So desire is not even an option. It's the ability part. The ability stuff is what you'd like to save time on. You'd like to find out if the guy can buy before you spend any time with him. Well, in real life, that one's costing you sales too. If you pre-qualify people, and by pre-qualifying, let's look at the ad you run that says, we're great with people with bad credit. Got a little bad credit? Come on down, we'll get you done. If you're in the get-me-done place, then you have a habit of pre-qualifying. Well, how's your credit? Who do you offend with that question? The people with bad credit or the people with good credit? The only ones that I know that might be offended by pre-qualifying and asking about their credit would be the people with the best credit. So you end up only talking to people with the worst credit. So if you enjoy doing that, keep pre-qualifying. Keep asking that, how's your credit thing? The other thing we're concerned about is, can they buy the car? They come in and say, I want to look at a new Camaro. One of the first words that comes out is, what do you want to spend? Now, I don't know if you realize this or not, but when customers are at home figuring out all this stuff, they figure what they would like to spend for the car, and if they had to, they'd go to this much, and if they really had to, they'd go this high, and if they had to, I guess we'd pay this much. They do the same thing on trade values, on down payment, and on payments. When they sat around the kitchen table before they came down, they sat down and figured out what they would like to spend in a payment. If they had to, they'd raise it a little bit, and if they really had to, they'd go higher, and if they really had to, they'd go this much. When they say, I want to look at a Camaro, and you say, what do you want to spend, which payment do you think they give you? Do you think they reach in there and grab that highest figure they can ever imagine, or do they grab the lowest figure they'd like to get away with? Pre-qualifying sets you up for failure inside. they pick that 100.5 payment instead of that 275 they might be willing to go to, and now you got your work cut out for you even trying to close this thing inside. Now your negotiation just got tougher, all because you tried to pre-qualify. Not only that, guy comes on the lot and he gets out of a 78 Vega with the right side missing and says, I want to look at a new Corvette. Looks kind of dowdy there. He's got his old coveralls on, doesn't have any shoes on, and says, I want to look at a new Corvette. What's one of the first questions you ask him? How are you going to pay for it? Well, I'm going to finance it. What kind of payments are you looking for? Well, around 3 1/4, something like that. And your little mind is doing its calculating, and you say, well, this isn't working out very well so far. And did you have a trade-in? Yeah, I got my little Vega over there. I believe you're about to say, and how much did you want to put down? Well, about 300. Aren't we just about done? Isn't it time to whip out your dismissal slip and say, here, Bob, see you later? When you wander around town and look around a little bit, wake up, come on back, we'll talk about it. That's not enough down, that's not a high enough payment. And you try to get the payment and the down out of people before you get them excited. Now, I used an extreme example. Most people come in looking for a Camaro or something like that. And they normally ask you about what they want. Regardless of whether you sell Camaros, Firebirds, or a car like that, when somebody says, I want a Camaro, if you said basic transportation or something a little nicer, what's the payment range on a Camaro? Didn't we just ask them their payment range? Basic payment on a Camaro, I'm guessing, is $250, $275 on the low end to $350, $400, $4 1/4 on the high end, maybe $500. If that's the payment range, you already know the payment range. When you say basic transportation, they're telling you they want to spend in the low 300s. When you say something a little nicer with a lot of equipment, oh, I want the loaded one with all the toys, they're telling you they're all right in the 400 and 500 range. You don't have to actually ask them what they want to spend. They'll tell you. Basic transportation, something a little nicer. This pre-qualifying stuff is killing your sales. You again have to assume they're there to get it, and you can't pre-qualify. So what do you do instead? You have to investigate. You have to investigate wants and needs, how they're going to use it. Qualifying is not something that you and I can do. And I've held every job in the dealership, give or take, in the sales department, and I've got a lot of experience doing this. I've been doing it 25 years, and I can honestly tell you that standing in the middle of the lot, I can't ask enough questions of a customer to determine whether they can or can't buy the car. And if I can't do it, without a manager, a finance manager, a banker, and sometimes 7 different banks, how in the world do you figure you're going to do it and come out right? And it's not like we've got anything else to do. You know, we talk in some other segments about you spending 9 hours there and putting in a 3-hour day. You only talk to people about 3 hours because you pre-qualified the rest of them and dismissed them too quick. This one's killing your sales. Quit pre-qualifying people. See, the problem started when we didn't know anything in the beginning, and then we started learning a little bit. In the beginning, didn't you give everybody presentations, demonstrations? Didn't you say, when somebody says, what are my payments going to run? You say, I don't know, I'm new. When they said, what's my trade worth? You said, beats me. We'll have my manager look at it later. When they ask you about how cheap you could sell it, you say, I don't know, because you didn't know. And then you started learning what they'd sell that Camaro for, what they'd sell that Explorer for. Then you kind of started figuring out what a 78 Vega was worth. Then you started learning the payment range, and then you couldn't stop yourself when they said, what will my payments run? You said, oh, somewhere between 3 and 5, depending on how much down, what were you putting down. You couldn't stop yourself from coming up with that. And if you look back at your chart, the average new person is on an increase for about 60 or 90 days, and then they learn just a little bit too much about their job. Now, somebody said you're supposed to stay dumb in the car business. That's not what they meant. You need to get smart. You need to learn to sell. You need to learn to close. What they meant was you got to quit talking price and payments and everything else out here. That's not your job. Your job is to investigate. I find out what people want by asking them a few questions. We're looking for a Camaro, basic transportation, something a little nicer. Something pretty basic. How are you going to use it, business or pleasure? Oh, I just get back and forth to work. I live about 75 miles from work, and I need something that gets pretty great gas mileage. They've told you their payment range. On the other hand, if you said, how are you going to use it, business or pleasure? And the guy said, well, I drive back and forth to L.A. every day, and I carry clients with me. It's kind of important that I show them a pretty good image there with my car. Then he said he's going to be on the higher end, and he explained why. Quit worrying about it. If you wrote somebody, let me ask you a question. If you didn't talk price or payments or pre-qualify, would you put more people on paper? If they said, how much is that going to run me? You say, I don't know, do you guys like the car? Yeah. If everything worked out and you were comfortable with it, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it? Oh, no, if everything worked out, I'd take it. Great, come on inside. Couldn't you put almost everybody on paper if you quit worrying about the payments and the trades and what you're going to sell it for? Now, if you put everybody on paper and you didn't pre-qualify for credit, you didn't pre-qualify for how much they wanted to spend, would it be safe to say that you'd write some people up on too much car? I agree. You would. Would it be safe to say that some of the people you wrote up would have bad credit and couldn't buy anything? Yeah, that'd happen. Would it be safe to say that you'd put some people in there that owed more than their trade's worth? Yeah, I think you would. Would it also be safe to say that since you put a lot more people on paper, that even though some had bad credit, owed more than their trade's worth, some were on too much cars, you'd still sell more cars? I think that'd be safe to say. You got to make a decision. Are you going to sell more cars and make more money, or are you going to stand out there and try to pre-qualify your customers? Because you can't do both. Now, the 6-car guy taught us how to pre-qualify. We need to learn from the 20 and 30 and 50-car people. They wouldn't consider it. My job as a salesman, I finally realized after 5 or 6 years, is to get you excited about the car, not talk to you about price, get you excited about the car, get a commitment to own, go inside and do the paperwork in there. Basically, keep this in mind. You sell on your feet, you talk price on your seat. You guys work on this, talk about it. Why don't you do something else too? Why don't you make a list of all the money that you see yourself losing because you pre-qualify? Add that up and I think you'll change your mind and learn how to investigate. Talk about it, get your managers involved, role play some of this stuff. And I'll see you on another segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. Let me give you a quick tip here. How'd you like a sure cure for boredom? You know, in those days when you're standing around, nothing's happening, you've already drank all the coffee you can possibly stand, you've smoked all the cigarettes you can smoke, you've hung around the huddle so long, you can't stand listening to those same stories again, and you've already had breakfast twice, and there's just nothing to do. You've already visited with the service customers out there, and nobody's out there, you're just flat, pure bored. How'd you like to get a fix for that and maybe even sell some cars and make some money? This is really easy. All I want you to do is call your wife or your husband or your significant other there, whoever it is, call them and say, you know, honey, I'm kind of bored. I just wanted to visit with you a little bit. I don't have anything to do. There's no customers around here. Nothing's happening. And I wanted to ask you a quick question. And they'll probably say, well, what's the question? Well, the question is, I could probably sell some more cars if I just did some outside prospecting, called a few people. You know, if I went out and worked service drive a little smarter, maybe asked for referrals, or if I call some orphan owners. And there's a couple customers here and there, but I just really didn't want to talk to them. I guess if I talk to them, I could make a few $100s extra. Do you think I should go do some of that stuff, or should I just sit here on the telephone visiting with you? I have a feeling to tell you that you'd get off the phone and go out there and talk to a customer and do something, sell some cars and make some money. You know, you're in this high-paying profession, and if you wait for it to happen, sometimes it doesn't, but you can always make something happen. Get out there and go to work. Quit playing around. That's why you came to work. And I'll talk to you on the next segment. Till then, have a great day.
That's the end.
You guys interested in making an extra $500 a week part-time? You know, I'm amazed how many people in our sales classes raise their hand when I say, how many of y'all have a part-time job? And I know a lot of you just thought they meant at work, because I know we screw around most of the day, but no, they were serious about having another job. They're still trying to sell Amway, or they're delivering the LA Times or something like that. Out of 100 people, probably 3 or 4 hands go up. Why would you work a part-time job to make another $500 when you're sitting on a gold mine? On this segment, let's talk about unsold working follow-up, that working prospect follow-up, that guy that just left the lot. I don't know if you understand the statistics on this stuff, so first let's talk about a few quick facts. 38% of these people are going to buy a car in about 4 hours or less. 38% of the people who leave the lot, actually 38% of the people who go out and look at a car truck are going to buy one in about 4 hours. 57% are going to buy one within 3 days, and 90% buy one within a week. Now, if you just read some other surveys that said it takes longer than that to buy a car, this is a 6-week process, I'm not questioning those. This is once their foot hits the curb. See, people get the hots for a car as soon as they go out looking at them. Now, if you also understand the other statistics, 78% of the people who go out and look at a car or truck buy one, 85% came to get it. But 72% came on the lot and said, we're just looking. So the statistics, this says this is true, this says it isn't true. Well, this is a reflex objection. That's all that is. Too many of us fall for it. We don't think we got a serious buyer, so we don't stay in touch with them. You're guessing wrong most of the time. And let me show you some other facts about how it's affecting your income. I said you'd like to make an extra $500 a week. Grab a pencil and piece of paper if you don't have one. When you talk about B-backs, you've heard about that B-back bus? Well, 90% of the customers are never followed up on again after they leave the lot. That means if your customer's been to another salesperson down the street, there's a 90% chance they're never going to call them. Now, it's too bad we don't do more follow-up. Would you agree, just for a conversation here, if you're talking to one person on a slow day, 4 or 5 on a busy day, average 3 or 4 on an average day, that's what our average salesperson tells us in class, that works out to, give or take, 15 to 20 per week. Now, I know you sell some, you write some are stuck in their trade, some can't buy. Would you agree that at least 9 people per week leave without buying? We start there. That you didn't try to sell, that didn't go through the system, that didn't end up buying. 9 people a week, does that sound realistic? Counting the guy with the toothpick in his mouth, that service customer showed a general interest. 9 per week. Okay, now the statistics about be-backs. Did you know that 33% of the people come back when you do good follow-up? Now, to make this work, you have to follow up all 9 of the people. Not a select few, not those few now and then you'd like to. What's 33% of 9? 3. That's how many are going to come back. We'll call these be-backs. 3 of these 9 are going to come back on the lot. Now, when you talk about be-backs, 67% of the people who come back on the lot buy the car. That's the closing ratio. The only reason they came back was to buy something. Their motivation might have been iffy when they walked on the lot the first time, but hello, if they're back, they might be interested in buying a car. Forget what that 6-car guy told you. How many times you and I have been standing in the huddle and they said, don't mess with that guy. He's been back 5 times. Why would you think he's coming back? Come back to buy a car. 67% of 3 is what? 2. Now that's 2 per week, and times 4 weeks, give or take, that's about 8 per month that you could make if you just follow up with all the people. Now 8 a month. If you make $250, $300 per deal, I think that's, gee, that looks like give or take about $2,000, doesn't it? Or about $500 a week you're leaving on the table just because you don't want to do your follow-up. It doesn't make sense. You've already spent some time with these people. You probably already built some rapport. You've already investigated. You already presented. You already demonstrated. You've already done the hardest part of your job. Why in the world wouldn't you want to stay in touch with these guys? Let's look at a 6-step follow-up program for your unsold prospect. You're going to need to grab a pencil and a piece of paper and write these things down. The first thing you need to do is you got to get their name, address, and phone number. At least their name and phone number. When you're out there on the lot, you have to also learn how to get a number. You don't say, gosh, guys, can I get your name and number before you leave because my manager told me to follow up, see if I can get you back in and sell you a car. That doesn't work. There are some techniques you need to learn. When you're out there on the lot and the customer's about to leave, say, gosh, before you guys leave, let me jot down a couple of things here. You're looking at that blue SC. And Bob, how do I spell your last name? He's S-M-I-T-H. And Bob, what's your phone number? You don't look at Bob when you say, Bob, what's your phone number? You don't ask the permission question, Bob, may I get your phone number? Kind of lean like you're leaning with your good ear and say, Bob, what's your phone number? And he'll give it to you. And then you need to ask, what's the other? Is that work or home? That's my home number. And what's your work number? Well, why do you need it? Oh, just in case, you never know. And he'll give you all the numbers. If he hesitates, say, Bob, what's your phone number? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Train must have gone by. It honked too loud there or something. And then he'll give it to you. If he's got a 10-year-old son standing there with him and he hesitates there and you say, Bob, what's your phone number? Help you, Daddy, forgot. I guarantee you the kid will give it to you. But you got to start with a name, address, and phone number. Get that name and number so that you can do follow-up. Step number 2, you've got to call these people back right away. Remember, the 38% are going to buy a car within 4 hours, 57% 3 days, 90% in a week. You don't have any leisure time on doing follow-up with those people who just left. Do it quick or lose the opportunity. Now, when you call them back, what do you say? Hi, this is Joe. Do you want to buy a car? No, probably not. You need to create some urgency. Now, let's assume that the guy had a trade. Most people do. He probably left. He said, oh, we're just not quite ready. We need to create some urgency so this guy can make a decision to come back and trade cars with you this afternoon. How about calling him back up and saying, hi, Bob, this is Joe down dealership. I just had some great news for you. What's that? I was talking to my manager after you left, and he said he'd sure like to take a closer look at your car. He thinks he's got a buyer for it this afternoon. And I wanted to know if you guys come back down around 6:30, or would 7:30 or 8 be better? And you're closing on the appointment. What did he say he'll give me for it? I don't know. Again, he's got somebody that wants to take a look at it, and they can give us a firm figure when you guys get down here. 6:30 or 7, or would 8 o'clock be better? Well, what would my payments run? I don't know. I can have all that figured up as soon as you guys get here. 6:30 or 7, or 8 o'clock be better? You got to make the phone call, and you want to sell the appointment. Quit trying to sell the car over the phone. So step number 1, you got their name and number. Step number 2, you called them. Step number 3, you need to send them a thank you note. Now, if you also got their address, and what's your address? Well, why do you need it? Oh, I was just going to send you guys something. Oh, well, it's 123 Oak Street. That's not hard to get either. If you have a demo permit and you use their driver's license, say, folks, I need your driver's license for a demo permit, you've already got name, address, and phone number, and insurance company. Or if you're giving away a color TV, you got a way to get a name and address and phone number. Get it. Now you need to send them a little thank you note. It says, I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate the opportunity to show you our products, and I know people make decisions on who to purchase from as well as what to purchase, and I appreciate your confidence. I'll be in touch soon. You need to get that in that little blue box on the corner by 5 o'clock if you can, so that they have it in their hands tomorrow before they go look at cars. Average person goes to 4.5 dealerships. We know that 90% of the other people are never going to call them back. You've called them and you've sent them a thank you note. Now before they go out and look at cars again tomorrow afternoon, they've got a thank you note from you and a phone call from you. Who are they most likely to come back to see? You. Hopefully you had an appointment that night. Now if they didn't show up for the appointment, the next step, step number 4, you need to call them again. You call these folks back. Now you also have to give them another reason to create the urgency. And you could say, gosh, I'm sorry I let you guys down last night. I missed you. I hope I was out on a demonstration drive or something. I didn't see you down here. When they say, oh, no, we didn't show up. Or you can call up and say, hi, guys, sorry I missed you last night, but it might have been good. I got some great news. Anytime somebody says, oh, we're not interested, say, gee, that's too bad. I had some great news. I just want to share that with you. I'll bet you they can't get off the phone without asking you, what was the great news? Oh, it doesn't matter if you guys aren't interested. Well, tell me just in case. Anyway, I always call people up and say, I got some great news. Now I've got to come up with some different great news than the good news I had yesterday. Sorry we missed you last night, but that might have been a good deal because my manager had a meeting this morning. He said if we had anybody looking at a car like you're looking at, to get them down quick. He's got to order cars this afternoon. If you're ever looking for any kind of consideration, maybe a little more for your trade, and he's still got that buyer, I checked with him. You've got to give them a reason to come back in. Now in the old days, we said keep calling them until they buy or die. We don't do that anymore. Step number 5, you turn them to your manager. If you've made 2 or 3 phone calls with this hot prospect, and they're all hot prospects statistically, you can't get them back in, your manager needs to pick up the phone, and I'm sure they're going to be cooperative and be glad to do this. Seriously, we're all interested in selling cars. As a manager, I need to call them and say, hi, this is Joe down dealership. I understand you were in talking to one of my salespeople and you're looking at that blue Camaro, or whatever it was. They're probably going to say, we're not interested. Well, gee, that's too bad, and I understand that. I'm just doing like to, so that we don't make the same mistake with the next customer. If you don't mind me asking, what's the one thing kept you from getting it? I need to get that, what's the one thing kept you from getting it, into my conversation as a sales manager. And I make that call, and sometimes that management title works and gets people back in. So if you can't get them back in, don't wait 6 times and trying to call them. Get your manager involved. Now, if you're playing telephone tag with somebody, that might be different. And leaving messages. Somebody just asked me a couple of days ago, should I leave a message when I'm doing follow-up? On an unsold working prospect, I might leave 1 message. I would never leave 3 or 4 or 5, because then they get mad at you for bothering them, even though they might have said, call me. That's just kind of how it works. So get somebody to call them if you're not getting anywhere with them. And the last step, whether you sell them or not, you need to put these folks on your follow-up list. I made more sales from any single customer in a short time than I made with any of my other customers, and it was the guy that didn't buy a truck from me. I called him back one Saturday afternoon. He was looking at trucks, and he was looking at a camper shell, and all we had was an ugly yellow one with a camper shell, and I kind of don't blame him. And I called him back, and I said, hi, this is Joe. And he said, Joe, I'm sorry. We bought a car down the street. Instead of saying you paid too much, I said, gee, that's great. And I'm sorry we didn't have what you're looking for. I hope you love your truck and all that. Enjoy it. Congratulations. Did his salesperson do any follow-up? Did his salesperson call him and say, thanks for buying the truck from me? No. Did his salesperson send him a thank you note? No. I did. I said, congratulations, enjoy your truck. He had some people over for dinner the next week, and they said, we're looking for a car too. Where'd you get yours? And he said, forget where I got mine. Go see this guy named Joe. He's a lot nicer, just didn't have the right car. In the next 45 days, I made about $4,500 in commissions from the people that didn't buy a car from me. We make a big mistake out there pre-qualifying people on the lot. You're trying to guess who the buyers are today, and you guess wrong almost every time. And not only that, we're trying to guess who the buyers are going to be in the future, and you guess wrong on that one too. You do your job on the lot, you'll sell cars. If you don't sell it, follow up. If you don't sell it or you do sell it, follow up anyway. And you'll be amazed how many of these people turn into great future customers. You guys work on this one. It's really important. Besides that, you got nothing else to do all day except drink coffee and hang around the group. Get to work on your unsold prospects. That's where the money's at. That's the hottest prospect you got. Work on it, review the tape, write down the 6 steps, role play it, and I'll talk to you on another segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. When you're closing, wouldn't it be great to have something besides dropping the price when your customer says, I'll think it over and get back to you? Here's a great technique that'll take you from I'll think it over down to another closing question. Now, before we get into the technique, I want to remind you a couple things about closing. If you do a good job on the lot, closing's going to be easy inside. If you do a bad job on the lot, closing's going to be a little tougher inside. So make sure you build rapport, build value, investigate, present, and demonstrate. That's the key to selling and closing. Remember, too, when we talk about closing, that 80% of the sales are made after the 5th time you've asked. That's why you need techniques like this. You need dozens of selling techniques. We're going to talk about a 5-step method here that'll help you. And I also want to remind you that when you get an objection, especially when you've closed, especially your first objection, it's almost always a reflex objection. And that just means it's something that people just say. They don't really mean they're going to go home and think about it. What they said is, gee, I'm nervous, this is a big decision, I'm afraid I'm going to make a bad decision, so I better procrastinate, put off making any kind of decision at all. In almost every case, I'll think it over is just an excuse to leave. Even if they did want to think it over, would sure still like to be able to close a sale or would like to try. Now this is a 5-step method, so you're going to need to grab a pen and paper and we'll write these down. We'll go through the 5 steps, we'll go through the script that goes along with the steps, and then we'll get back and I'll cover the whole script all at once and it'll make more sense. Now the customer I just tried to close, we got back off a demonstration drive and I said, Bob, sounds like found a perfect car, how do you want to register it, Bob or Robert? And he said, Joe, I think we're going to think it over and get back to you. The first thing you need to do with this objection or any objection is agree with them. Say something positive, great. Joe, we're going to think it over and get back to you, great. Now, we want to add some scripts to that. And if you don't like scripts, I understand that, but you need to understand scripts are just words that you say. Right now, the words you say when somebody says, I'll think it over, are probably, how low do we have to go, or what do we have to do to earn your business today? That script's not worth very much. It's worth about 30, 40 grand a year. If you'd like to have some scripts that work better, then learn some of these new words. So don't turn off when you hear that word script. Step number 1, agree with them. Joe, we're going to think it over and get back to you. Great. I know you wouldn't even take the time to think it over unless you were serious, would you? No, Joe, we're really serious. Step number 2, you want to confirm. We want to double up on this confirmation. I mean, you guys really are serious, aren't you? Oh, yeah, Joe, we're really serious. Step number 3, now, for lack of a better word, we're going to call this, we're going to squeeze a little. We're going to, not pressure, but a little light pressure. It'll be fun, don't worry. Step number 1, agree. Great, I know you guys wouldn't take the time to think it over unless you're serious, would you? Step number 2, confirm. I mean, you guys are serious, aren't you? Step number 3, squeeze a little. You guys aren't just saying that to get rid of me. You're not just saying that to get off the lot, are you? You know, a lady did that last week and we called the police and had her arrested. They said, no, Joe, we're just kidding around. We're not kidding around. We're serious. We're going to come back. Step number 4. Now what we'd like to do, we've worked ourselves into a position. We've gotten them to agree that they're serious. We doubled up on it and made sure that they were really serious. And now we need to find out what they want to think over. This is called clarifying. Now my script would be something like, okay, Bob, before you guys leave, though, do me a favor. Help me understand. And now I'm going to throw out some questions here. Tell me why you want to think over. Is it something I said? Was it color? Was it equipment? Or was it the price? Now when you say, help me understand why you're leaving, just to clarify my thinking here, what is it you wanted to think over? You can just leave that as an open question, or you can supply the answers. I prefer to supply the answers. Because when you just say, what do you want to think over, they're lost and they have to come up with another objection. I prefer to throw in the objections for them. When you say you want to think over, exactly what was it you wanted to think over? Was it something I said? I know I've done a good job, so it wasn't that. Was it color? I'm going to throw in things that probably aren't wrong. Was it color? Was it equipment? Or was it the price? Guess which one they pick out of those 4? Something I said, color, equipment, or price? You're right, they almost always pick price, and that's good luck, that's not bad luck. Now, we're not going to drop the price to handle it. Just keep on going here. Now, they just said, Joe, it's the price. Oh, gosh, I understand. Step number 5, we want to isolate and close. Isolate means you get them to agree that there aren't any other objections. Close means you ask for the order again. So they said, color, equipment, something I said, or is it the price? And they said, no, Joe, it's the price. Well, gosh, I understand. It sounds to me like you're like me and everybody else. Sounds like you guys are on a budget, am I right? Oh, yeah. That's called rephrasing. We've taken price down to budget. Sounds to me like you guys are like me and everybody else. You're on a budget, am I right? Well, yeah, Joe, it's a pretty big decision. I understand. Well, let me ask you a question. If we went inside, fiddled with figures, you were okay with the figures, and you felt comfortable with your budget, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it now? Aren't they in kind of a little corner here? They've gone from I'll think it over to agreeing that it's price and agreeing that it's budget, and now we've said if everything's okay with the budget, would there be any other reason? Well, gosh, no, Joe, I guess if it fit our budget, we'd take it. Great, can I get you guys a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we wrap this up? Give me a cup of coffee. Now we're going inside, and a few seconds ago all we had was I'll think it over. Review your steps. Agree with them the first time. Great. I know you guys wouldn't even take the time to think it over unless you're serious. B, confirm. You guys are serious, aren't you? C, you want to squeeze a little bit. You're not just saying that to get off the lot, are you? D, clarify. Exactly what was it you wanted to think it over? Was it color, equipment, something I said, or was it the price? Isolate and close. Sounds to me like you're like me and everybody else, you're on a budget. Am I right? Great. Let me ask you a question. If we fiddle with figures, you're okay with the numbers. Would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home on it? No, I guess not. Great, coming inside. Can I get you a cup of coffee, something cold to drink while we wrap this up? We've gone from I'll think it over to a closing question in just a few seconds. This is one of those techniques, though, that you have to practice, drill, and rehearse. You have to memorize it. You have to learn some things. It's easy, though. Just always agree with them. Start confirming. So, guys, I mean, you guys really are serious, aren't you? Yes. It's not so. It wasn't something I said. Color, equipment, or was it price? And go through the 5 steps. Role play these in class. Write them down. You may need to replay this tape because sometimes I talk kind of fast when I'm doing these scripts. Replay it. Talk about it. Role play it. And practice this, not on the next customer, practice it on each other. And after you feel pretty comfortable with it, practice on the next customer that says, I'll think it over and get back to you. And you'll be surprised how easy it is to turn that reflex objection into an, okay, we'll take it. You guys work on it. And have a great day, and I'll talk to you on the next segment. Here's another topic that's costing you sales left and right. Now, in another segment, we talked about getting a customer statement and how to get it. On this segment, let's talk about how to get a customer statement and get the bank to buy your customer. That's just as important. Now, again, you're missing sales left and right because you try and take shortcuts with this step. So let's kind of start at the beginning. What are banks looking for when they try to make a loan? Would you agree that they want to get rid of their money? We both know that banks don't make money sitting on it. They got to get it in our hands so that we can repay them loans and interest. They want to get rid of it, but they're not going to just give it to you just because you got a $300 or $500 or $600 voucher hanging on the line out here. Banks are looking for basically 3 things. They're looking for character, they're looking for stability, and they're looking for ability to repay the loan. And if your customer matches those 3 things, then you get some deals bought. But now too many of you try to take shortcuts. You try to do these little 5-liners. You run into the manager's office with this guy that's on too much car, seems like. He's on too much payment, doesn't seem like he's got enough down. So you take a quick 5-liner and you go in there and you say, boss, can we check this guy out before I go to any more trouble? I don't know what more trouble you can go to. You've already been with a customer 90 minutes. You've already presented. You've already demonstrated. You've already built rapport. You've already investigated. I can't imagine why you'd want to take a 3 or 4 or 5-minute shortcut now with a 5-liner. But we do that all the time. We go in the manager and say, here, let's check this guy out. Now, I understand that bureaus can make a deal for you sometimes without doing any extra work, and you can have a lousy credit app. It's not the problem on the ones that you can make. It's on the problems that the ones that you miss because you didn't have the rest of the information. This guy sounds a little edgy. It seems like he's on too much car. He doesn't want to put much down. And let's go ahead and run that bureau. And the bureau comes back and he's got 3 90-day lates. In fact, he's got another couple of little credit problems there that show up. Now, he doesn't have much down. He's on too much car. And I believe right about now your manager sends it in and he gets the, we got to pre-check it. And you come back and he says, okay, get me a little bit more information here. We'll check the guy out and we'll call him later today, tomorrow, or next week, whenever it is. Have you noticed the problem is when you call these guys back, they already went down the street and bought a car somewhere else? You did all that, and it probably took you 3 or 4 minutes to take a 5-liner. It only takes 7 or 8 minutes to take a complete customer statement. So the first thing you should have done is take a complete one. Now, again, with this same iffy customer, you ask him a few questions there before. Where do you work? Well, I work over at McDonald's restaurant. Oh, really? What do you make? I make about $1,800 a month. And how long you been there? I've been there 6 months. And you do your 5-liner and go in there, again, too much car and everything. Manager pre-checks it. What if you had gotten the rest of the information? See, when those 90-day late showed up and that little information you had on McDonald's restaurant, and we use that term loosely, and he doesn't make enough money and he's got those little credit problems that show up, now it's become a pre-check. Let's go ask him some more questions this time. Let's do a complete app like we were supposed to have done before we go inside. Now this time you're taking that credit app and you got name, address, phone number, city, state, zip, and where do you work? I work at McDonald's. How long you been there? I've been there 6 months. That's not quite the stability the bank's looking for, so let's dig a little bit. Where'd you work before that? I worked at Carl's Jr. How long did you work there? Worked there 6 months. We still don't quite have what we're looking for. Let's ask him some other questions. And where did you work before that? Oh, I worked at Rockwell. Oh, how long? 30 years. Stability, did we just hit the bingo on the stability part? Now we have stability the bank's looking for. Now we're going through this and we get the rest of the information. We find out the guy's got $500 in his regular checking account, and you need to get used to asking, and how much do you have in your secret little account? In his little secret account, he's got $15,000, and in his retirement fund, and we get down here to income, and he just doesn't make $1,800 anymore. When he worked at Rockwell for 30 years, now he also makes $3,000 a month in retirement money. You get down here and you're asking about relatives, and you say, Bob, who should I put down here for a relative? Oh, I'll put my son, Bobby Jr. Oh, no, you better not. You know, he had a couple credit problems in the past, and they hit on our account a couple times. It's shown up on our credit report. Let's use my sister instead. Would you agree that you got some information now to help you close the sale, help you get this deal bought? Now when your manager says, whoa, the guy's got a little bit of a problem here, you can say, I know, I checked. That was his son. He had these problems, and it looks like he's got 2 short-time jobs, but he worked at Rockwell for 30 years. Finance managers sitting in the room. Would you agree that now we've turned this from a no deal into a deal just by gathering the extra information? As a manager, I can't imagine why in the world you would allow us as salespeople to take shortcuts on this most important step. Serious stuff. You got $2 or $3 grand hanging on this. Salespeople got $2 or $3 or $500 hanging on it. There's a couple other things when you're taking these customer statements, and again, you want to take it so that the information is accurate, complete, and neat. But I also want to take it so that I can listen for red flags. And I call any number that's rounded off, especially income and job time, a red flag. If I'm asking the customer, I said, how long have you been on your job? And he said, 2 years. I've realized now that nobody has a 2-year job. Some people have a 1 year and 9 months job, a 2 year and 1 month job, but it's really important for the bank and that banker who's making the decision to have accurate information. Anytime I hear something rounded off, it's like a little red flag waves. And when they say, I've got a 2-year job, I say, congratulations, 2 years this month. And they say, well, no, it's not 2 years this month. It's going to be 2 years about 4 months from now. Well, we don't have a 2-year job anymore. We have a 1 year and 8 month job now. And where did you work before that? I worked at Rockwell for 30 years. Now we have a 30-year job. So that all started when that little red flag went up. You have to ask these questions. Somebody says, I've got a $2,000 a month income. How much money do you make? Oh, I make about $2 grand. Oh, really? Nobody makes $2 grand either. Oh, really? What are you figuring? 500 a week? Well, yeah, give or take about 500 a week. What does that mean in real life? Well, it's about 5 1/4. 5 1/4. How much is 5 1/4? Is that $2,000 a month? Somebody just said it's $2,100 a month. Not quite. It's about $2,300 a month because you have 4.3 weeks a month. Now, another little bell should ring there. He's got 5 1/4 coming out. Let's say the guy works at Rockwell, and do you have anything coming out of your check before you get it? Well, yeah, I've got a boat payment. And how much is that? That's $300. Oh, now we've got $2,600 income, not $2,300 income or $2,000 income. And do you have any other income? Yeah, I'm retired military and I get another $1,500. And do you have any other income? Yeah, since I got to drive up to LA every day, I figured I'd get me a paper route while I was up there. I got to be there at 6 in the morning anyway, so I just get there at 4 and drop some papers. It's not much, it's only about $100. I think we got a guy making 4 or 5 grand a month now instead of somebody making 2 grand a month now. And hopefully common sense tells you that that's going to be easier to get done. Don't do any 5-liners. I would also get a complete customer statement for everybody, even the cash buyers. That guy that says, you don't need that, Joe, I'm going to pay cash. This little script just always kind of flows out. Well, Bob, if you're paying cash, whip out those $100 bills and won't ask you another question. We know they don't have $100 bills, and he said, well, I'm writing you a check. And what street did you live on? Now, if you're selling Cadillacs in Palm Springs, it's a little tougher to get a credit app than if you're selling Chevys in Des Moines. I understand that. But shouldn't you try to get the credit app on everybody? And then if it doesn't work, fall back to I couldn't? Instead of saying, you can't even try that with these guys. They'll blow out. You don't understand my customers. You don't understand that you're losing almost all the sales now anyway. For every car we sell, we send 4 buyers down the street. That doesn't seem like we're doing that good. So we need to practice, drill, and rehearse these things. Again, when I first started selling cars, we role-played credit apps and write-ups, and we did that every day for 5 years. I can get a customer statement, credit app, on everybody because I was taught to. In fact, my manager was so tough on us, if we had a blank on this thing, they just turned our deal. We could come in with $100 bills and a 5-line app and all the money you needed and have to give them change. And I did that. I sold one of these converted Dodge Vans when I first started, and I went in with, I was really happy. I had a credit app and a write-up, but I didn't do it the way they said do it because I had the money. And I went in and showed my manager, and Gary or Frank said, Joe, that's great, but you don't have the information filled in. I said, I don't need it. I got the cash. And he said, you didn't have him sign a write-up like we wanted. I said, well, I don't need to because the guy gave me cash. And he picked up the phone, he paged the salesman. He said, Jim, the sales office. Go help Joe out here. He didn't get all the information we need. And Joe, you're off this deal. You can go do what you want. And I kind of thought these guys were pulling my leg. I figured I'd get my voucher. It'd be in a little secret box somewhere. I never got it. And I did it again. I never got that one either. And then I finally realized these guys were serious. And then I started listening in these role-playing sessions, and I figured out how to get a complete statement on every customer that walks on the lot that I ended up writing up. And you'd be amazed when you learn how to do it, you can get them on 95, 99% of the people. It's not that hard when you've practiced. It's really tough when you haven't. Now, all of this also depends on you doing a nice job on the lot. No shortcuts out there. Take shortcuts out there, this gets tougher inside. You've already spent the 90 minutes with them. Do the right thing in those 90 minutes, and you'll find that this customer statement and getting this information you need to get these deals bought is a piece of cake. But no shortcuts, and you got to learn how to do it. So you guys work on this, talk about it with your managers. It sounds like you need to role play it on a regular basis. I'll see you guys on the next segment. Till then, have a great day. You guys interested in learning a great close? This one will help you close the sale. It'll also help you handle an objection. Now, this one we're going to talk about on this segment is called a summary close. It relies on several things, and one of the most important things, and I have to remind you on every segment when we talk about closing and objections, it relies on you having done a good job on the lot. You do a good job out there, this is easy. You do a bad job out there, this is tough. So that first 45, 60, 90 minutes is the most important part of selling. It'll make closing easier or tougher for you. Now, this is called a summary close. And you want to take some notes on this. This also relies on 3 question techniques that we've talked about. Now, if you've gotten some of our other videos, heard some of this on some other segments, we'll put all these things together. Remember those minor commitment questions we talked about? How to get a customer to say yes. They're technically called tie-downs, tag-ons. Boy, that seat sure is comfortable, isn't it, Bob? Yeah, it sure is. Sure make those long trips a lot more fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, it sure would. Now, we know we only ask questions that we already know the answer to. We're not going fishing for a yes. So you need to review those other tapes and brush up on those. We're going to use that type of question. Remember that assumptive statement. The positive things we say before we're ready to ask for a closing question. You guys are going to love your new car. This thing gets great mileage. Sounds like we found a perfect car. And then we have that either-or question. We're going to learn to use all of these at once in this close. Now, there's a short version and the long version. We'll go through both of them. You've got your yes questions, those yes responses. You've got your assumptive statement, that positive statement that you make. And then you have that either-or closing question. Now, this is an assumptive close adding some yes questions to it, and we call this a summary close. Example of using it. You get back off a demonstration drive. Bob and Betty seem pretty excited. You get out of the car and you say, Bob, that drove pretty nice, didn't it? And he said, yeah, it sure did. And this has the color and equipment you guys wanted too, doesn't it? Yeah, it sure does. And I know you hadn't planned on that sunroof, but that's kind of nice too, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Bob, it sounds to me like we found the perfect car. Were you going to put it in your name or Betty's name? Get some positive answers, positive statement, either-or closing question. Now, that's the short version. Now, again, we're out on the lot. We just got back off a demonstration drive. It sure drove good, didn't it? You like it, don't you? Has the equipment you wanted to, doesn't it? You know, guys, sounds to me like we found the perfect car. Now we're going to register this Bob or Robert. So it works great out there. That's the short version. Now, you can use the longer version. Let's say that you got back off the demonstration drive and Bob and Betty weren't quite as excited as you need them to be. You need several of these things. The longer version just means you get more little check marks. You ask more questions. You might even need to do another mini walk around to the car. You get back on, you see that Bob's kind of got his hands in his pockets, closed body language. You need to loosen him up a little bit. Bob, that drove pretty nice, didn't it? Yeah, that was pretty good. And I think this had the equipment you guys wanted too, doesn't it? Well, yeah, it's pretty close to what we were talking about. And I know you guys didn't plan on that sunroof. That's kind of nice too, isn't it? Well, yeah, it pretty is. He's giving you the positive, but they're kind of non-committal. You may need to do another mini walk around. So Bob, come here, I want to show you something else I don't think I mentioned before. You open the hood, you show him the visible reservoirs that you didn't talk about before, and you say it's kind of nice to just open your hood and be able to check all the fluid levels, isn't it? Well, yeah, it is. Go around to the side, and I know one of your other main concerns was safety too, wasn't it? Well, yeah, it was. And you know, our manufacturer had you and your family in mind when they designed this little car, and they put steel beams in the doors to deflect the bumpers down in case you're involved in a side impact collision. And that's kind of neat too, isn't it? Well, yeah, actually, Joe, it is pretty nice. You know, Bob, it sounds to me like we found a perfect car. We're going to register it Bob or Robert. A lot more check marks, positive statement, either-or closing question. This is the close of choice, and we've talked about this before. The either-or question is almost always your closing question. You lead into a closing question with a positive statement. You guys are going to love your new car. It sounds to me like we found a perfect car. You lead up to them with several minor commitment questions. Now, that works great on the lot. It also works great when you get that first objection. You say, sounds to me like we found a perfect car. Are you going to register it in your name or her name? Now, you only use it once. You don't use it to close and then handle the objection. Actually, you could, but you wouldn't normally most of the time. You get the objection and you say, sound like found a perfect car, and they said, no, I think we're going to hold off. Why? Do a quick summary. Why? You like it, don't you? Yeah. It's got the equipment, doesn't it? Yeah. And I know you didn't plan on a sunroof. That's kind of nice too, isn't it? Yeah. You know, Bob, it sounds to me like we found a perfect car. Let's go ahead and wrap this up and get you guys out of here. Put all this shopping behind you. Okay. How do you want to register to your name or her name? This is easy. When you get that first reflex objection, it's almost always a reflex objection. You tried to close, and I said you would normally use both of these at the same time. You could, I guess, get out of the car and say, that drove pretty nice, didn't it? Yeah, and that had the equipment you wanted, doesn't it? And you guys like the color too, don't you? Yeah. How do you want it registered to your name or her name? They may say, no, we're going to hold off. Why? I mean, you guys like the car. It's got the color and equipment. One of your main concerns was safety. Now you're just repeating these. It's got everything you want. It sounds to me like you hit that spot everybody else hits about now. You just got nervous. I know it's a big decision. Let's go in, wrap this up, put all this shopping behind you so you can get out of here and start having fun in your brand new car. This is a great close on the lot. This is a great close when you get that first reflex objection. A short summary close or a longer summary close. In fact, if you looked at your entire presentation, you gather information in your investigation, and then you use that information in your presentation to cover features, advantages, and benefits. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're going back and reaffirming the features, advantages, and benefits that were important to these folks. It's called a summary close. Short one, long one. You can use it to first close. It's great with that first reflex objection. Now you're going to need to practice this. You guys get in those little huddles we talked about, not the negative huddle. We're not going to go smoking, joking, spitting. But you guys gather around the table there, groups of 2 or 3, and role play this stuff. Don't practice on customers. That's worth $300. Practice on each other. And you'll get better and better and better. You guys work on this. This is an excellent close. This is one of those closes of choice. And I'll talk to you on another segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. You know when you're getting close to making a sale, you've already presented, you've already demonstrated, you already built rapport, you already investigated. You may have even asked a closing question. You said, well, what do you think? You want to go ahead and take this thing home? Or sounds like found a perfect car. How do you want to register it in your name or her name? And they say, well, now hold on. The price is really high on this, or gee, that's expensive, or well, I don't know, it's pretty expensive, we should shop down the street. Let's talk about learning how to handle those price objections. Now, I'm not talking about bypassing objections. We talk about that in different segments. Bypassing a price objections when they just talk price early on in the presentation. They say, what do you figure my trade's going to be worth? What would my payments run? That's called bypassing. You put that off until later. We'll get back to that in a minute. First, I wanted to ask. Let's talk about changing a price buying objection. You asked for the order, they said, nope, that's a lot of money. Let's talk about how to handle that objection and turn it into something that we can work with, and let's talk about the closing tools you have with that. First of all, when we talk about objections, I don't know if you realize it. When you talk about an actual objection, now you have other things that sound like objections. You have concerns, how much is it, what's my trade worth? You have conditions, I don't have my trade here, my wife's not here, I lost my job, I have no money, no credit, no down payment. Those are conditions. And then you have objections. When you talk about objections, you only got 7 objections. Now, a couple of those revolve around price. Now, it's a shame to go through an entire career with only 7 things that keep us from sending a person home with a car. Let's talk about how to handle these. When you talk about reflex objections, there's 7 objections. There's reflex objections and there's sincere objections. Now, when you talk about reflex objections, let's look at those first. You're closing the sale, sounds like found a perfect car, how do you want to register? And they say, no, we better hold off a little bit. That's a reflex objection almost every time. Now, the people came to get the car, that's a statistical fact. 78% are going to buy a car, 85% walked on the lot to get it. But since the very beginning when they said, no, we're just looking, they've been hesitant. They're about to make a $20,000 decision, somewhere between a $10,000 and an $80,000 decision. The average car is about 20 grand. They're about to make a $20,000 decision. Now, they didn't have real good luck last time with this. The salesperson they bought their last car from didn't treat them very well. Statistically, they weren't happy with their purchase overall. And here they are faced with another one. Now, there's a lot of fear that comes in. Fear, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right car? Is this the right product? Is this the right place? Is this the right price? And what happens is the fear causes people to procrastinate. That means put things off. And you ask for the order, and they go, oh, I think I better put this off. That's what they're saying to you in real life, but they throw out an objection. One of the most common objections you get is, gee, that's a lot of money. Or you guys want way too much for this. Or that's really expensive. Now, if you just take that price objection that you just got, it's a lot of money or it's real expensive. If you're going to deal with that price objection, I think the only tool that you have when you have a price objection, if you're trying to close a sale, what's your only method that you have to work with? If I understand it right, the only thing you can do is lower the price. Now, that doesn't seem like a very good way to handle the objection. Now, price is probably not the objection in real life. It's probably a reflex objection like we're talking about. Now, let's look at it if it was a sincere objection. If price was a real objection and they said, gee, that's a lot of money, I don't see why the car's worth that. Isn't that a value objection? If people buy based on value, if they complain about the price, what they're actually complaining about is value. So if you had a value objection, does dropping the price help build more value, or does dropping the price lower the value? So whether it's a reflex objection or a sincere objection, you don't want to sit there and drop the price. That's the worst closing method you'll ever learn. Joe, we like the car, but we don't like the color. How cheap do we have to sell it? We use price for everything. Okay, so we've gotten our price objection. It's a lot of money, or it's more than I can afford, or gee, that's expensive. If you close on that and say, well, what do we have to do to earn your business? This is your only closing tool. What if we could change that objection? What if we could make it easier for you to handle? What if we could give you 10 closing tools instead of just the one? Let's talk about how to do that. This is called rephrasing. What we're going to do is change the customer's objection. We're going to take it from price and we're going to change it over to something else. Now, they just said, gee, that's a lot of money. If you responded with, whoa, sounds you're like me and everybody else, sounds like you're on a budget. They said, well, yeah, we are. Have we just changed the objection from price to budget? So here they go again. They say, whoa, that's a lot of money. Sounds like you're like me and everybody else. Sounds like you're on a budget for this new car. Well, yeah, Joe, we are. Now, if you're with a doctor, you say, well, you can't say that to a doctor. No, you can't say it that way with a doctor. You change it a little bit. The really rich guy, you don't say you're on a budget. He says, well, you know, Joe, that's a lot of money. It sounds like you're like me and everybody else. You've budgeted a certain amount for your new purchase. Am I right? Well, yeah. We can take price and move it to a budget just as easy as that. Sounds like you're on a budget. Now, what closing tools do we have with a budget objection instead of a price objection? You go inside with a price objection, the only thing I know you can do is lower the price. You go inside with a budget objection, and you need to close on that. Sounds to me like you're on a budget. Yeah. So if we sat down, fiddle with figures, you were okay with the numbers, and you felt comfortable with your budget, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it? No, Joe, I guess if it fit my budget, I'd take it. So we changed the objection to budget, and then we got a commitment if everything worked out, they'd take it home. We haven't dropped the price. We haven't talked about price. We didn't talk about payments. We didn't talk about how cheap we're going to sell a car. Didn't talk about trade value. We've converted the objection to a budget objection. Now let's take a look at that. Budget. If you're talking about budget, what tools do you have to help you close on budget? Somebody said terms. Absolutely. You extend the terms, 36 to 48. That would help fit the budget better. What else could you do with budget? You could get more down. That'd help. You could ask for 600 instead of 500. That would put the car more in line with their budget. Aren't most people making payments on these cars? Now, if you're selling Cadillacs, Mercedes, Lexus, maybe some aren't, but most of them are leasing the car, if I understand it right. So you're still faced with a budget of some sort. Most people are concerned most with the money that comes out of their pocket each month. And that's what this objection helps you with. Some other tools. If you got a little better interest rate, would that help with the budget? Lower the rate just a tad. I believe it now fits their budget a little better. What else could we do? Guess we could learn to lease. Leasing would help. I suppose we could put them on a pickup payment, get some of that next payment down, you know. All right, we got $800 down here, and your next payment's due, what, in about 45 days? We'll go ahead and instead of sending that to the bank, go ahead and bring it into us. You're going to make that anyway. What else could we use? Budget. Could we maybe pay off something? You know, every day, don't you get one of those Visa or MasterCard things in the mail that says pay off your other Visa, MasterCards, lower your payments, better rate? If we were looking at their customer statement, credit app, and we noticed that they got 3 Visas there and they're paying 50 on this one, 40 on that one, 80 on that one, couldn't you pay 2 of those off with one of them and probably lower their payments $20, $30, $40 a month? Seems like that would help. How about the gas savings clause? Guy pulls in a van that's getting 15 miles a gallon, buys a car, gets 30 miles a gallon. Sounds like you saved 15 miles a gallon. And if he drives 75 miles to work each day, it sounds like you saved him about 5 gallons, which works out to, give or take, $6 to $10, whatever gas costs in your area. Now, gas savings clause works pretty well. How about the maintenance clause? You ever use a maintenance clause? This is all about budget. When you were taking the trade in, when you were doing your silent walk around, one of the questions you asked was, by the way, Bob, have you done anything in the last 12 months to improve the value of your car? They tell you everything. Later, when you're inside, you turn it into a maintenance close. Price, you've got one tool. Budget, you have several tools. Now, a lot of people can't remember how to rephrase an objection. And you're going to go out there and try this, and you fumble with words. If the customer says, boy, that's a lot of money, and you can't remember what you were supposed to say, just say, what? And they'll change the objection themselves. Boy, it's a lot of money. What do you mean? Well, we're on a budget. Oh, I get it. Sounds like you're like me and everybody else. Well, let me ask you a question. If we fiddled with figures and everything worked out and you were okay with the final figures and felt comfortable with them fitting your budget, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home on it now? No, if it fit the budget, I'd take it. What payments run? Let's go inside and see. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we wrap this up and take care of the paperwork? Now, you're going to have to practice, drill, and rehearse this. And I'll bet if you guys sit around in a sales meeting there for a few minutes, you could come up with some other budget ideas, some other things that would help you close more on budget. Rephrasing objections is one of the things you need to learn to do, and we've only talked about it with a price objection. Kind of recap. It's a lot of money. Sounds to me like you're on a budget. Then you need to get a commitment. If we sit down and fiddle with figures, everything worked out, and you were comfortable with the figures and terms and you felt it was going to fit your budget, would there be anything else holding you back? No. Depends on what we get from my trade. I understand that. We'll have my manager take a look at it, kind of get you a cup of coffee, something cold to drink while we wrap this up and take care of the paperwork. This one you're going to have to practice, drill, and rehearse, role play it in class, make a list. I hope you've been taking some notes. You may need to replay this and listen to it. And you get to work on this one, and I think you'll find that price is one of your most common objections, and this will be one of the easiest ways you've ever come up with to handle those objections. Work on it, have a meeting on it, and I'll talk about it. I'll talk to you again on the next segment. Until then, have a great day. Most salespeople want to make the big bucks in sales, and most work long and hard and think they're accomplishing everything that can be done, but most end up average. Let's give you a couple quick tips on making the big bucks in this business. First thing we ought to do is take a look at what you're trying to accomplish. In sales, you have short-term success, and then you have long-term success. Short-term success is from the things that you do today. You sell a car today, and what do you need to do to sell a car today? Well, you got to present, you got to demonstrate, you got to investigate, you got to build rapport. Your closing skills, your objection skills, your negotiation skills, all of those help you to sell and deliver a car this afternoon. Your long-term success comes from what? Comes from having a good, solid customer base. Now, most of us don't plan at all for long-term success, and we have poor short-term selling skills. In fact, let's take a look at the average salesperson in America. If we're just looking at average, the average salesperson in our classes, we talk about this, we do the math. The average salesperson tells me on a slow day they talk to one person, on a busy day they talk to 5 or 6, and on an average day the average salesperson talks to 3 or 4, mostly walk-in customers a day. Now the average salesperson, now if you do that 4 times 25 days, that's give or take about 100. Now I know you don't log 100 because the manager yelled at you that one time about having a 10% closing ratio when you only sold 10 cars, and you cut it in half, so I know that you only log about 50. But it sounds like you got a 20% closing ratio, but in real life, the average salesperson has a 12 to 16% closing ratio. 12, 15, 16%, something like that. Because we're talking about walk-in traffic, and that's what the average salesperson does most of the time. When you talk about what else the average salesperson does, if you were talking about all of the people that you talk to, have you ever talked to a service customer before, came up front and said, don't waste your time with us, we're just kind of kicking tires, wanted to see what the new model looked like, they're changing my oil. Have you ever sold them a car? Of course you have. After you got them excited, got them behind the wheel, created some urgency. Have you ever had that couple that came on the lot and said, don't waste your time with us, just kicking tires, not buy anything for months? Sure, after you got them excited, got them behind the wheel, created some urgency. So when you're counting people, I want you to count all the people. If you count all 10 people that you talk to, out of every 10, how many do you give a good presentation, good demonstration to? Real life. 4, it's what the average person in class says. Somebody says 2, somebody says 3. We hardly ever hear anything over 5 or 6. 3 or 4. So if 4 people drive it, funny thing about all the people are 99% said they wanted to drive the car before they buy it. If you only let 4 drive it, what did you decide the other 6 out of 10 won't do at your dealership? Right, can't buy, didn't drive. Average salesperson's given 3 or 4 out of every 10 a presentation and a demonstration. How many cars does the average salesperson sell? About 10. How much money does the average salesperson make? About $30,000. Now, if you're selling a Highline product, you may sell 8, you might make 35 or 40. If you're selling regular products, that'll be about 10, about 30 grand. Now, a lot of people are doing a little bit better than that, but that's just average. We don't want it to be average. We want to get out of this rut. Let's take a look at the things you need to do to succeed in sales, short-term and long-term. First thing you got to do is you got to make a change in your work habits and your selling style out here. You got to go to work instead of screwing around. The average salesperson goes to work to wait. They spend an entire career standing out here on the lot waiting for something to happen. That's what an average person does. If we looked at a professional in sales, somebody who's making big bucks, do they go to wait or do they go to work? Do they hang loose with a huddle out there and wait for something to happen all day, or are they inside either talking to a customer now on the lot or writing up a deal, or are they talking to somebody on the phone or answering phone calls, doing follow-up? First of all, you got to make a decision. Are you going to work to make friends, or are you going to work to earn professional wages in this business? Next thing you got to do is you got to make a decision. You know that game you guys play, Guess Who the Buyers Are, where you pre-qualify everybody? Got to quit doing that. That one's killing your paycheck. I know it, you know it. You can sit there and write down the last 3 big vouchers you lost because you guessed wrong. You didn't think that was a buyer, so you didn't bother talking to him. You got a cup of coffee, and a few minutes later he's sitting in the finance office and somebody got a $500 voucher. You guessed wrong. When you get tired of losing all that money, I'd suggest you start making some assumptions. Number one, if you're going to stand out there and take ups, you need to assume that everybody who walks on the lot can buy, will buy, and came to buy a car. Anything other than that, you're going to walk out with the wrong assumption. You're going to say, well, you probably didn't come here to get a car today, did you? And you're going to be right. Your attitude, your enthusiasm, your skills, your presentation, your demonstration is going to talk them right out of buying the car they came to get. The pro doesn't do that. The pro assumes everybody they can talk to will buy. You don't pre-qualify people for credit. You don't pre-qualify them for how much they want to spend or what they want for their trade or how much they want to put down. Your job is to get them excited about a car. You do that through those basic steps of selling. But that first has to come from the assumption that everybody's there to get it. You have a habit of looking out there and you can decide based on how they look, how they act, and how they sound, whether they're buyers or not. It's killing your paycheck. Give everybody presentations, demonstrations. It's the only way you can do it. These basic steps of selling, you've got to do those with every single customer you talk to. You also need to learn some selling skills, some closing skills. If I could, would you, is not a good closing question. Dropping the price is not the way to handle objections. Pros know 20, 30, 40 other closing questions. Pros know that price isn't an objection at all. Most of the time, it's a reflex objection. It's just something people throw up. We're going to think about this and get back to you. It's not a buying objection. That's another reflex objection. So when you get tired of people throwing out these objections and you're tired of missing those sales, you need to learn to handle those. Now, those are things that affect your short-term success. Coming to work, treating everybody as a buyer, no pre-qualifying, the basic steps of selling, and again, those closing and objection methods. How about paperwork? That affects the sale today. How about the negotiation? That affects the sale today. You need to brush up on those. For your long-term success, there's only one thing you need to do, and that's start doing your follow-up with every person that leaves the lot, whether they buy a car or don't buy a car. Even if the guy's not buying a car today, I finally realized I don't care. I want the money when he is ready to buy. If it's 6 weeks from today, so what? Don't you want the money? All it takes is a couple phone calls, a letter here and there, and you've got a sale. That sold customer, did you know they're going to buy more cars? This isn't the last car they're going to buy. 95% are going to buy more cars. I want to be the salesperson that this whole family depends on when it's time to make a decision about a car. I want to be the only salesperson they think of when they're a Little League game with somebody else or at the bar having a beer. When a guy says, oh, I'm going to get a car, I want him to say, hang on, I know this guy named Joe. That's where your long-term success comes from. The difference between making average bucks and big bucks starts with you and your attitude and then the things that you do. It's time to make some serious decisions. Are you going to work to play around, or are you going to work to get serious and make some money? And if you're not sure it's the right thing to do, go home and ask your wife or your husband. Say, I could probably double or triple my income. What do you think I should do? Think about this, talk about it, make a list of the bad habits that you have, write down the list of the things that you already know you should be doing, and make a list of how many more cars you think you could sell if you just applied yourself. And then get to work. And I'll see you in the next segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. Are you one of those salespeople that's constantly changing dealerships, looking for that perfect place to work? You know that perfect place. What would be the perfect place? I guess the perfect dealership would have the big trucks dropping off all the little cars that you need in the right color with all the right equipment. The perfect place would have that big giant advertising budget. They'd have more customers on the lot than you could even deal with. They'd show up at 9 o'clock, the bus would drop them off. And they'd all be there with checks in their hand, ready to write a blank check, lay down, and just let you fill in the amount later. The perfect place where your manager's got those great spiffs and bonuses. The perfect place where the coffee machine puts out cappuccino instead of that cheap stuff in those little cups with the, did you ever win the poker game on that, by the way? The perfect place where your manager gave you all the house deals. The perfect place where the weather's always great, the air conditioning always works. The perfect place where you never have a deal turned down. The perfect place where the finance manager is always coming up to you and saying, what can I do to help you sell another car? I'm working on this and my knuckles are bloody from all the work that I've done trying to get this thing bought for you. That perfect place where everything's right, you guys need to shake yourself and wake up. There is no perfect place. And one of the quickest tips and best tips I could give you would be to get in one dealership and stay there. That's going to have more effect on your long-term career than most other things. Now, the perfect place. I don't know that there is a perfect business. The last one you worked at wasn't perfect. But isn't it how you deal with the things that are wrong that determine whether you stay at a place or not? You know, if we looked at why most people get out of the car business or leave a dealership, it really wasn't something that even affected them. You know, when you're out there in the huddle the other day and they were complaining, somebody got cut on a deal, somebody felt that they should have been on that, and then the hum-ha started, and they said, well, what do you think? And you had to throw out your opinion. And then there was that deal where a guy didn't get what he thought he should get for his trade value. The manager should have given him more. He's trying to steal the trade. And then there was that deal. There's always something going on. This guy got an extra house deal. This guy didn't get an extra house deal. This guy's finance manager is not working hard enough on his deal. And you get all involved in that, and it's very likely not a single one of those things happened to you. But when you get wrapped up in it, now you got to take sides. And then when you take sides, the commotion goes on. Then it's management against sales because all that negative stuff in this perfect place. And then you may have to quit your job to back up your stand on those things that didn't matter to you in the first place. If you're really serious about selling cars and making some money, having a good long-term career, and finding a good place to work at, first of all, you got to stay away from them. Next time you hear somebody complaining about something, just walk away. It doesn't affect you. You need to stay out of the politics in the dealership. Stay out of the sales office in the dealership. If you'll just pick up your telephone when you got nothing to do and start prospecting, doing some follow-up, if you'll go outside, if you're going to be outside instead of hanging around them, go talk to a customer. Wander the lot until a customer shows up. It's funny how that works. Just walk between the cars, get your inventory knowledge out there while you're waiting for a customer. Then they show up. If you'll just worry about you, you'll be very successful, and you'll find that that dealership you work in now is a good place. And I can tell you from experience that it is, or you wouldn't even be watching this video. Did you know that only 30% of the dealers in the country care enough about you and your success to provide the training, any kind of training that you need to succeed? Quit playing around, get serious. Start a follow-up program. And don't change dealerships because you're going to lose most of those customers that you had established with that great customer base that we talk about developing. So quit playing around, stay away from them, realize there is no perfect place, and I'll see you on another segment. Until then, you guys have a great day. When you're out there trying to close a sale, handle objections, you get a lot of people to say, we're going to go grab a bite to eat and we'll come back later. You get that other guy that says, well, I got to run some errands, I'll come back in a couple of hours. Wouldn't it be great to have a technique that would slow them down and find an objection that you can work with? I'm going to go grab a bite to eat is not an objection that we can close on. I'll be back in 2 or 3 hours is not an objection we can close on. Now, most of us start dropping the price. Well, what do we have to do to earn your business right now? That's not the best way to do this. In fact, that's the worst way. What we need to do is find a way, a technique that'll pull an objection out of we're going to go grab a bite to eat, or I'll be back in a couple of hours. We call this is called the call their bluff technique. And I've got to remind you of a couple things before we get into the technique. Remember that 80% of the sales are made after the 5th time you've asked for the order and they've said no. That's why you need a lot of these different techniques. I want to remind you too, and we've talked about it on other segments, how important your first 90 minutes are with these customers. If you do a good job on the lot, investigating, presenting, and demonstrating, closing is much easier. If you do a bad job on the lot and take shortcuts, closing is going to be much tougher. Let's start with the guy who says, I got to grab a quick bite to eat. We just tried to close the sale. Bob and Betty are there, and Bob said, you know, Joe, we like the car and everything, and we're going to get it. We're just going to go grab a quick bite to eat. Now, I know that you can, your manager may offer to send them down the street in a car and all of that, and you dehorse them. Those are definitely techniques that you'd like to consider. But let's try one first to see if this is a true thing they're going to do or if they're just using this as an excuse to leave. And this technique will find that out for you. Bob says, Joe, we're going to grab a quick bite to eat. Without hesitation or anything, reach in your pocket, whoop out $5 and say, guys, grab me a hamburger on your way back. I'm starving. Now, most of the time we've done this, they're not going to take your money. We know that. What we're looking for is that hesitation, that stuttering and stammering kind of thing there. What we're looking for is the body language and those other signals that they weren't coming back. And as soon as I got my $5 out and they hesitate and they kind of look at each other, I say, oh, I get it. You guys weren't coming back. I'm slow, but I catch on. Now I also need to find the objection. So I follow that with, help me out for a second. Before you guys leave, tell me exactly what was it. It sounds like you need to think it over, you need some other time. What was it exactly that's holding you back? Is it something I said, color, equipment, or is it the price? They may also come up with an objection on their own. They may say, Joe, it's just a big decision. We got to check with the credit union, bank, something like that. Again, it doesn't matter what the objection is. What we're trying to do is find an objection that we can work with. If they tell me price, that's an objection I can work with. If they say, Joe, we like the car, but it's the wrong color, that's an objection I can work with. If they say, I want to check with my wife, friend, credit union, uncle, that's an objection that we can work with. But going to grab a quick bite to eat is not an objection that we can work with and close on. Let's take the guy that says, I'm going to come back in a couple hours. Another fun one. Again, we're going to call his bluff. You're out there closing. He says, no, Joe, I got to run some quick errands. I'll be back in a couple hours. Great. You always treat the objection with great. Great. I'll go ahead and start the paperwork, get the car cleaned up. We'll have that thing ready when you get back. I just need about a $500 check. And again, we're looking for the hesitation. We're looking for the body language, the flinch. As soon as they flinch, oh, gosh, Bill, I get it. You weren't coming back. I'm slow, but I catch on. Now they're probably going to say, well, Joe, it was something, whatever the objection is. We want to check with a friend, wife, credit union, or whatever objection is. If they don't come back with an objection, then we want to pull one out. You see them flinch there and you go, oh, I get it. You guys weren't coming back. Help me out, though, before you leave. I mean, in real life. I mean, why aren't you getting it? It seems like it's the right car. Was it something I said? Was it color, equipment? Was it the price, or was it something else? If they pick price, that's great. If they pick color, that's great. Something else. If you don't mind me asking, what is it? Well, I got to check with the credit union. What we want is an objection. That's all this technique is designed to do, is to help you pull the objection. Then you're going to have to use the other methods we've talked about to handle the objection. Another one, that guy that says, we're going to come back later, let's call his bluff a different way. You know him. He said he lives here in your local town, and he says, well, Joe, I like the car. I'm going to come back in a couple hours. Great. You know what? In fact, I'm going to be in your area later this afternoon. I'll just have the lot man follow me over with the car. He can give me a ride back, and we'll just do the paperwork there and save you a trip. What's a good time to get over there? Again, we're looking for the flinch. We're looking for the body language. We're looking for the giveaway that that was just my excuse to leave and I really wasn't coming back. And then again, you go through it. They're very likely to give you an objection. If they don't, you've got to pull it out of them. When you see them hesitate, exactly what was it you wanted to think over? Was it something I said? Color, equipment, or price? Price. Gosh, sounds like you're like me and everybody else. Sounds like you're on a budget. Well, yeah, Joe, it's a big decision. I understand if we fiddle with figures and everything worked out, though, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it now? You can go straight from, we're going to go grab a quick bite to eat, to another closing question in just a few minutes or a few seconds in a lot of cases. But it's really important that you learn how to handle these objections. You're going to get an objection, you're going to close, you're going to get another objection, you're going to close, you're going to get another objection, and another one, and another one. And that's 80% of the time. So you're going to have to learn some of these techniques. This one's fun. Some of you guys, I can almost hear you laughing. In class, we talk about this. There's always those 3 or 4 people that break out in a laugh because they've been pulling that $5 out of their pocket. I never had anybody take my money and not give it back to me. I've had people take it, get to the curb, walk back on the lot and say, Joe, we just couldn't take your money. We weren't coming back. Oh, gosh, I'm really surprised to hear it. Help me out. Exactly what was it that you guys wanted to think over? What was the, I mean, why weren't you getting it? I mean, it seemed like the right car, and you go through and question everything. This is not only fun, it works. So you guys talk about this, practice it, write out some scripts, role play it, and get to work on it. It'll make you a lot of money. And I'll see you on another segment. Until then, you guys have a great day.
That's the end of this topic. Before you move on, let's review some quick tips to help you remember and use the information Joe just covered. While it's still fresh in your mind, quickly review and rewrite your notes. When everyone is finished, have a group discussion on the points Joe covered that really struck a nerve. After your discussion, write down the 3 most important points Joe covered on your after-class feedback sheets. Be sure to jot down why each point was important and how you will implement it. Give a copy of your sheet to your manager so you can discuss your goals later. Finally, follow through so that your good intentions become the skills, habits, and attitudes you'll need to become an even more successful professional in sales.
Wouldn't it be great if you could handle that toughest price shopper? You know that guy with a chip on his shoulder that's already been to 7 places down the street, tell you he's going to go to 12 more? Well, I don't know any hard and fast scripts that'll close the sale for you on the spot, but I got a couple things that'll work. Our goal should be to slow this process down. If we let this guy roll over us, steamroller stuff, or if you go straight to the sales office in there and try to close the sale, you're probably not going to make it. We've been there, done that. We know that we can't challenge him, because if we do that, we're not going to make it. So we've got to figure out how to get control, and a lot of times we do that by letting the other person think they're in control. One thing I do want to point out, it's about this customer, and we always get this customer in our class. In our 3-day class, we're talking about it, and we're talking about selling and closing, and somebody always brings up this guy. If we were looking at all the people, out of every 100 customers you talk to on the lot, how many are this person that we're describing with that serious chip on their shoulder, says, look, I don't like car salesmen, I don't want to mess around, I just want to know your best price. In class, people tell us 1%, 2%, 10%. If we even counted it at 10%, doesn't that mean that 90% of the people are just regular folks? These folks are really nice. This is this tough guy. If you never figured out how to handle this one, you'll still get rich in sales by learning to work with these. But let's talk about some things to do with this guy. He comes on the lot and he says, look, I just want to know your best price. I got a couple of scripts, again, that the purpose of the script is to slow him down. I'm not trying to win an argument, and when you get an objection, the first thing you need to do is embrace it. You don't challenge it, because that adds resistance. The guy said, look, I don't want to mess around, already been to 7 places, just want to know your best price. Say, great. You sound serious. If you're serious about saving some money and getting a car, whip out that checkbook, follow me, and I'll have you out of here in 20 minutes. And you need to turn around and walk away when you say that. The little script was, great. You sound serious about getting a car and saving some money. If you're serious, whip out that checkbook, follow me, and I'll have you out of here in 20 minutes. And again, you need to walk away. If you'll do that, and I know some of you have tried this, we've talked about it before on other tapes. If you try that, what you generally get is 1 of 2 or 3 responses. The guy says, whoa, wait a minute now. Which car are we talking about? This is kind of like calling his bluff. This is like playing poker. The guy hadn't driven a car, and we know that people don't buy cars without driving them. We know that he's probably not paying cash, so he's not going to be able to whip out that checkbook. Besides that, he doesn't have his wife with him. So we have a lot of things working to our advantage. And we don't turn around and say, gotcha, when he says, oh, wait a minute, which car are you talking about? Oh, gosh, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. Again, our purpose is to slow this down. It's to change the focus, change the flow out here. It's going in the wrong direction. I'm going to say, gosh, I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. I didn't even ask, who's going to be driving this thing most of the time, Bob, you or somebody else? Well, it's going to be for me, but I'm not buying if I don't get the best price. Gosh, I wouldn't expect you to. We'll take a few minutes here and make sure this is the right car for you, though. And then you work into your investigative questions, your control questions, and everything else you're using. Again, we don't want to challenge this person. He'll either say, wait a minute, which car are we talking about? Or wait a minute, I didn't drive this thing. Or hold on there now, not so fast. Either that or he's going to follow you in. And most of the time they don't just follow you in because they're playing this little shopper game out here. Again, our goal is to slow it down. How many times has this guy become one of your best customers once you learn to handle him right? You can't use the procedure stuff. You can't say procedure here is first we got to do this, and then I can get you a price. You have to slow it down by letting them think they're in control. It's kind of like the other people that come on the lot and then just don't want to talk to you. They say, look, I don't want to talk to a car salesman. Is it safe to say they got beat up down the street or something like that a few minutes ago? Well, they may not want to talk to you. How many times have we backed off and said, that's fine, no problem. If you're looking for new cars, they're over there. I'll be out here. If you see anything you like or you have a question, just yell and I'll come right over. No problem. When you back off, what happens to the resistance? It goes down. When you push, what happens to the resistance? It goes up. It's kind of like the guy who comes on the lot and throws his keys at you and says, here, kid, go get my trade appraised. You can say, well, now, procedure here at our dealership is we have to find the car you like first and get a commitment, and then we'll appraise it. But that doesn't work. Let him think he's in control. Take his keys, go into the sales office, say, yes, sir, salute, whatever you want to do. He said, here, go get my trade appraised. Yes, sir. Go inside, disappear, smile on your face, come back out, leave the keys on your manager's desk in there and say, boss, I'll be back in a second. Go back out to the customer. Now it's payback time. He told you what to do. Now he's required to participate in this conversation a little bit, whether he wants to or not. He has to. That's how human nature and all that stuff works. So I go back out, and that doesn't mean he's going to be real nice. I'm not going to be his best friend. Don't misunderstand. He told me to go get his trade appraised. I took his keys, dropped them on the desk. I come back now and I say, Bob, it's going to be a couple of minutes. My manager has another car to appraise real quick. While we're waiting, who's the lucky one? Who's going to be driving the car, you or somebody else? Now, he may only grunt, but I'll get some other information out of him. I'll have a couple minutes, and it's only going to be a couple minutes, and you know he's going to say, go in there and find out what my trade's worth. Yes, sir. Go back in, visit with your manager a little bit. Smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, do whatever you guys do in there. Have your manager take a glance at it. Don't get up, just look out the window. See that car out there, boss? Take a quick look at it. And then ask your manager, if you called around town, could you probably get a higher bid on it? And he'll say, sure. And again, stay in there 3, 4, 5 minutes, go back out and say, Mr. Customer, you want to get as much for that trade as you can get, didn't you? Yeah. My boss took a quick look at it, but he thinks he can get some extra money for it if he calls a couple other people, so it's going to take a few more minutes. While we're waiting, let's go ahead and drive this truck around the block. Now you're softening them up a little bit at a time. Now you're making friends. You can find these things you have in common. You've done everything he told you to do. He will get nicer. And if he's like most people, he'll get nicer pretty quick. When you get back off the demonstration drive, he's going to say, now let's go, what's my trade worth? Let's go find out. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something cold to drink while we wrap this up and take care of the paperwork? And now you're inside the office doing the paperwork. You bring this trade appraisal and you've got everything else already worked out. Now that's in a perfect world. Sometimes this stuff doesn't work. And remember, we're talking about the toughest customer. This first little script, whip out that checkbook, follow me, I'll have you out here in 20 minutes in a brand new car. It's going to slow most of them down. The person who walks on the lot says, I want to talk to you. That's fine, back up. That'll slow most of them down. The guy who throws you the keys, that little script will work with most of the people. But sometimes it's not going to work. You're going to have to practice all of these. You're going to have to quit challenging. You need to understand that when you win the argument, you lose the sale. And you need to role play these and practice them. And there's one other thing. When you get really tired of talking to this tough customer, start doing your follow-up and deal with repeat customers instead. This is what happens when you stand out there on the lot and wait for something to happen all day. This is what happens when you don't develop your skills, don't develop your follow-up program. This is what happens when you wait for your dealer to supply you walk-in traffic. This is just one of those guys. Those of you with a good repeat and referral business, would you agree that most of your customers don't come in with a chip on their shoulder, say, I want to know your best deal, we're going to shop 7 places? When you get really tired of it, switch customers. Until then, you guys work on this. It's really important to learn how to handle these guys, and I'll talk to you in another segment. Have a great day.
That's the end of this topic. Before you move on, let's review some quick tips to help you remember and use the information Joe just covered. While it's still fresh in your mind, quickly review and rewrite your notes. When everyone is finished, have a group discussion on the points Joe covered that really struck a nerve. After your discussion, write down the 3 most important points Joe covered on your after-class feedback sheets. Be sure to jot down why each point was important and how you will implement it. Give a copy of your sheet to your manager so you can discuss your goals later. Finally, follow through so that your good intentions become the skills, habits, and attitudes you'll need to become an even more successful professional in sales. That concludes this tape. For more information about our other programs and workshops, please call our toll-free hotline number, 1-800-445-6217.